penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair.
A very good morning to you. Happy Monday and welcome to Monday, October the 7th, 2019. Welcome to the Situation Room. Right here on Spice FM, I'm Eric Latif. Ndu Oko is in the house. How's your weekend?
Good morning.
How are you?
We're alive and hearts are beating, so I guess that's a good thing.
It's a good thing, always. Yeah. It's always a positive thing. And C.T. Muga?
I am very well, thank you.
Had a good weekend?
Yes, I did.
Did you watch the Athletics Championships in Doha?
Yes.
Qatar?
Some of it.
Some of it, a bit of it.
I also watched some of the World Cup rugby that is taking place in Japan. Mm-hmm. Yes, and noticed that Kenya wasn't represented.
Yes.
Yes.
In Japan, you're not?
No, in Japan, we were not. But, well, that's a discussion for another day.
In Qatar, we were there and we performed quite well. Not so well, but well.
Oh, we were second on the medals table. It's not bad.
No,
5 gold medals is a good thing.
This is the thing. Kenyans expect to win everything.
Right.
Everything we participate in.
And that is a good thing.
Yeah, so we came up with 5 gold medals, 2 silver, 4 bronze. That's 11 medals in total. Just second to the US, who had 11 gold, 10 silver, 4 bronze, 25 medal haul.
We're second.
We were second, that's what matters.
So these numbers...
Jamaica, China, Ethiopia was 5th, our arch nemesis.
So it appears that it's when we go to the Olympics where they have sports that some sports we've never even heard of, okay, and so wouldn't know how to participate in.
Right.
Feature.
Yeah.
Then we're prominent in the athletics, and that's just about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the Olympics, when you have rowing and some other games,
shooting,
some things.
Heptathlon.
Yeah.
Is it okay.
Heptathlon.
Heptathlon, yes.
Oh, here we go.
That's why we don't do so well. But this is the World Athletics Championships. And also we only always feature in the long distance running. Marathon coming down all the way to 1,500.
That we do very well. That we do very well.
Yeah, when it comes to sprints, the Americans and the Jamaicans, of course, dominating that. Great Britain to some extent.
Yeah.
When it comes to
Nigeria
events,
features very prominently.
In fact, Nigeria got a silver medal, a bronze medal yesterday in long jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
long jump women specifically.
But what was significant was there's a lady from India, first one ever
to
win
what?
A medal.
The staccato is fantastic.
Yes, speak in rhyme all the time. Was it speak in staccato all the time?
So all in all, it was a good weekend for Kenya, at least. Something when you hear the national anthem playing, the brass band playing the national anthem, it's really a good thing.
It was a tear-jerking moment for you?
It's a tear-jerking moment.
Oh, wow.
It's a heart-tugging moment.
Heart-tugging moment.
Oh, yes, and tear-jerking. Yeah. It's a very, very pleasant moment. The sad flip of this is that our officials at these functions tend to be more important than the athletes. Yes, because if you look at what the athletes have done for this country, sincerely, even at our worst times, they are the ones who keep that very positive light shining on this country.
That's very true. And when you're outside the country, with your thoughts of what you hear about Kenya, it's one of the first things that
it's
you
what
hear.
People know.
It's what we know. It's
yes.
what we know coming from outside. That you
yes.
know, this is a country where athletics are taken seriously, and it's a highly talented group of individuals who are able to perform
Believe
on a
me,
world
if
stage.
And
it
we keep
was-
chanting
yes.
new generation
Yes.
of new young people.
If it was a
Who are
group
conquering the world.
activity, we wouldn't do so well. No,
Yeah. When it comes to a team,
no.
Look at
Some
our football.
because again, the officials would be more important than the
entire team.
athlete.
Yeah.
Yes, and something which needn't necessarily have gone wrong will most certainly go wrong.
yeah.
Headlines. Why Raila Mudavadi are in an all-out war?
Are they?
When did this happen? Do tell.
It's a headline, and headlines by their very nature are not supposed to be true.
Sensationalist
They are
at
supposed
best.
to get your attention. The truth quotient in it is not half a subject for discussion.
What newspaper is this?
This is the Star.
What are they saying?
They're saying that words of war between the two expose deep-seated rivalry over 2022 control of Western votes. You see,
I see.
Yes. Now, if pause for a moment and ask yourself: in the last election, for instance, who is it who got more votes in Western Kenya? Was it the ODM party or was it ANC? Simple enough question. When you answer that question, you need to ask then what will have changed in 2022.
22.
Yes. If
ANC.
someone can show that ANC has done something that they hadn't done before to capture the hearts and minds of people in Western Kenya, then what was there in 2017 is exactly the same thing that will happen in 2022.
Maybe this is what the all-out war is. Is ANC trying to, take control of
Okay, the
of
question that
region?
one I would ask then, are they also at war with the Ford Kenya party? Because Ford Kenya party also want votes in that area. Are they also at war with the Jubilee party? Does the Jubilee party also not want votes in that area? And if you answer this question, then you will ask yourself, is Mudavadi acting on his own or is he supporting someone else's agenda? Because his particular prowess or power in the western part of the country is not really that significant. Not really.
Isn't?
No, not really. If you're to go by just the number of MPs that his party has, they're not that significant.
Okay. So it's shaping up to be an all-out war then.
Well,
It's shaping out to be an interesting headline.
exactly. TSC to hire 10,000 interns to plug the gap. Apparently, there's a gap. We've known that there's a shortage of teachers. Qualified teachers willing to serve anywhere in the country are advised to send their applications by October 23rd to be considered for the 4,300 vacancies in primary schools and 6,000 in secondary schools. So, like we said, there's a gap, and the way to solve this problem is to hire interns. The huge recruitment drive is a desperate shot at easing a severe teacher shortage in the basic education sector, currently standing at more than 10,000. So the answer is interns, and it comes at a time when the government is pushing a 100% transition from primary to secondary school, and at the same time implementing the new competency-based curriculum. So, you've been invited to send forth your application should you want to serve in intern capacity for the TSC.
So they're filling the gap.
Yes, they're filling the
It's a
gap.
stopgap measure.
Is that sustainable?
You can only have an intern for so long as an intern. At some point, you either have to get rid of them or you have to elevate their status to permanent staff.
Or you can get more interns,
or get
so
more-
you can keep churning them
Keep
out
churning.
to
Yeah.
cycle. So it's a way of government saving money.
Money, exactly.
I'm assuming they're paying the interns less.
Of course. And they don't have
With
to,
less benefits,
yes, no
pensions, and
benefits
so on.
as such. So
Sneaky, mischievous.
it's interesting because right on the same page, the TSC is set to award 9 billion shillings as a tender for medical cover. Just, a skip.
9 how much?
9 billion. The same TSC.
For the serving teachers, for those on permanent basis.
Yes.
What's
For
wrong
the
with NHIF?
what is wrong with NHIF?
So is that
Interesting. You have
is that a managed? Also,
arm of the
NHIF
government.
runs what is called a managed scheme, where they go into like TSC, the police service, various groups,
Parastatals,
parastatals, and then they come up with a proper
a
scheme. that
package
just-
for that particular.
Yeah.
Meaning, is this a competitive aspect that is similar to what other insurance companies offer?
Well, they're set to award a multi-billion shilling medical scheme. It was tendered in August for the provision of medical insurance for teachers up to 2022. It was advertised, and bidders are required to submit. They were required to submit by the 29th of August. The contract has attracted several local insurance firms and health service providers who form consortiums angling for a slice of the deal. Apart from having an established medical insurance firm, it's expected that the winning consortium will have a medical provider with the capacity to serve the huge TSC membership. So NHIF is not mentioned here as such.
Whether it's one of those that bid it, maybe. It's one of those that place
But
their
either
bids.
way, the government shouldn't be seen outright to be deploying private insurance when they're talking about healthcare,
Healthcare.
free healthcare. It should start with their own first, I think.
Yep. So
Let's see how that goes.
two big things going on there.
Yep.
And then you've got Ruto allies questioning Raila's powers in Jubilee government. That's somebody saying, Kip Kellyon, West MP, I'm surprised he can only ask the government to stop the dredging. I don't know where he got the authority. We're yet to know what the handshake means. It appears it was all about power. So some powers being exercised and some questions being asked from the other side. It's a section of leaders associated with the DP. They now attribute former MP's guts to handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta. Interesting. So he seems to have some powers. And it brings in the question of legitimacy over democracy. He did have the support of the people. Does that then give him the right to have some powers without having gone through elections, through the ballot?
We discussed this actually in this hour. It will be our first topic to dig deep into this
Okay.
as well and see what does this exactly mean for Raila, right? It's day 9. Now that we're actually talking about Likoni, it's day 9 since the tragedy happened there at the ferry. And of course, we know that Mariam and her daughter Amanda haven't still been recovered. The efforts are still ongoing. The government has said the family had, hired some private divers who are coming in from South Africa. When they arrive, they're going to be briefed by the local teams, and then they'll see how to work together towards trying to retrieve the bodies. So this is 9 days later. A man is sitting there agonizing and thinking, I really want to see my wife and daughter one last time. There's a son who's actually thinking, I want to see my mom and my sister. I want to know that they were retrieved. Their bodies were retrieved. It's a very sad thing.
It is not just sad, but it's tragic, because what they are doing is at best an exercise in futility. Just basic understanding of how water moves. You see, people talk about currents that are at the top, the water that you see on top. But there's a body of water below. Even when people dive, what they call deep sea diving, you will be told that there's a science to moving from one level to the other. If you simply move straight down, there's a likelihood that the current will probably break you into two. Because there's current that moves in opposite directions. One will be moving one way, one will be moving the other. Now, a place like that, where that particular vehicle was submerged, you have very, very, very strong undercurrents. And the likelihood is that as soon as that car landed, or it got to a certain level, the current started moving it.
It was taken away. And we must understand that it's a channel.
Yes.
It's a pathway for
it
the water,
is
so
a
it's
pathway
moving through.
It is moving. So the likelihood of that car being in the spot where they're looking is next to zero, really. It's very unlikely that vehicle is right there. Very, very unlikely.
Which is why we come back to the point that if we did have rescue emergency services on site at that time, perhaps we would not be looking at what we're looking at today. Could have been a bit better. We don't know, but it could have been better.
Although it is arguable that these occurrences are few and far between, and maybe we don't need to be investing. We've got higher priorities in terms of where our investments go. So
priorities for saving lives, like which ones?
In that there's such few incidents such as these that money can go elsewhere in Kenya in terms of maybe relief for food in certain counties and so on.
Do you know where this argument takes you to? Insurance being unnecessary because people hardly ever fall sick. Or car insurance.
But we have to remember we're a developing
car insurance
country.
being unnecessary because the accidents are far fewer than
Yes. And also, this is what is reported.
Which is the case in
The
poorer
incidents-
families. They won't
incidences
take
that
out
are-
insurance. This is what I'm saying we're a developing country. We don't have the necessary budget or financial muscle to have what the West would have, for instance, because our priorities are different.
If we have the amounts of money that keeps being misappropriated, it means the money
Absolutely.
exists.
Of course, there's always that argument. It sort of trumps everything else, doesn't it?
And also the investment in the entire ferry service. So you're investing in the ferry service, then also you expect that something could go
should
wrong.
come.
Yeah, if you're going to have something as advanced as a ferry service, then the other trimming should come along with it.
Those aren't trimmings. Those are necessities.
Part of the main
Right.
course.
Those aren't
Although
trimmings.
it could be argued that this is completely preventable. I mean, there was a rope that was holding things together, and it was just a matter of pulling up a ramp. So it could be argued it's pure negligence, and maybe we need to train our people better, perhaps.
Often you will find that ramp isn't working. Often. Or it's broken on one side and it's lopsided.
So maintenance.
It's a combination of all these things.
All those things.
There's nothing you will throw at this that doesn't actually pan out.
Which always filters down to leadership.
Yes. Yes, it
Filters
does.
up.
It always,
Right.
always.
Now, counties paid 162 billion shillings in wages but avoided development. So
Nice.
Ward reps' perks rose from 1.46 billion in the previous financial year to 2.2 billion. Of course, that's cumulatively. It's not each individual getting that. But having said that, that's a serious wage bill. Of course, it's a recurrent expenditure. It's not something going into development. And this is what I hope, if we do have a referendum, these are some of the issues I hope it addresses and amends, because we cannot be paying wages and have this recurrent expenditure, whereas the devolution was set out to devolve development as well, not just to create jobs for certain people who get serious perks.
How is a referendum going to sort this out?
I think maybe we could cut down on the number of counties, which would then in turn cut down on ward reps and so on. I'm saying it's one of the questions that should be in the referendum.
It just cuts down on the numbers. But
Absolutely,
doesn't cut down the
which-
percentage. The percentage
No,
is still going to be the
it
same.
cuts down on the salaries. If there's less wards, there's less reps. This is a tongue twister there. Then there's less salaries being paid out.
You have some counties that have only 10 reps,
Mhm.
right? In fact, Nairobi maybe has the most reps at 74. That's the one that has the most. So if you think about counties that are actually
We
so
might not
vast,
need reps at all. So these are the questions we should be asking ourselves
Ask
in the
yourself,
run-up.
what
Yeah.
hole are they filling
Why are we
right now?
further devolving devolution, you know?
No way.
We did
In
okay
fact,
without
what-
reps
what we need is-
previously.
what we need is
No,
to
we
reduce
didn't.
the
We've just changed the
burden
names.
that
The
From
ward reps were called councillors.
Councillors, absolutely. So maybe
Yes.
revise their salaries. Within the new-
Revise them from what to what?
and a referendum will not
Well,
sort these things out. I'm
If
saying.
ward reps are getting in excess of 2.2 billion in terms of perks, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
a
That money should
referendum
be. Yeah,
will
that
not
money-
sort these things out. It's not actually in the constitution how much a county. Ward
Well, we
rep
could
is getting
include it
paid.
in a referendum. We could include it in the constitution that they only get a certain percentage of the county budget. Because right now the county budget is going to wages and not development. So we could have a provision within the constitution that stipulates a maximum that the ward reps could get, and it's a percentage of maybe revenue collected within the county.
That
That
can
way
just-
they're not using national
That
funds
can
for
go
wages.
into statute.
Think about
We
it,
don't need
Eric.
to
You
Why
have
not?
individuals. Think about it. You have individuals who are elected to
Put it in
develop.
law.
You have individuals
Do
who
you
are
know-
elected
Why
to
wouldn't it
develop
go into a
Do you know
constitution?
why?
certain
You
parts
know-
of a county, and then you end up paying them
Why does it
all
have
the
to?
money that you,
Excesses.
all
Why
the
does
money
it
that
have
you
to?
have.
There's
Listen,
law.
you have elected individuals to push for development in county. You end up using all the money that you have to pay their salaries.
Yep.
Doesn't it seem like you're just going round and round in circles?
It's
Why?
wrong.
Yes, I mean,
It's very wrong.
you use all the money to pay their salaries
Yes.
as opposed to pushing for
We should
development.
cut back on wages.
But there's something Jerry is saying here that I think isn't being given sufficient attention. Why don't you peg it to what it is that they can generate? Not all of it, a portion of it. Remember, our law actually requires counties.
To generate revenue.
Yes. And what they do is they degenerate it. Yes. There are very few counties that can actually stand up and say, you know, this is what we used to do, and this is what we're doing, and this is the percentage by which we've gone beyond what was expected.
Which
do you,
is-
do you hear that? You don't.
You don't.
So it means what Jerry is suggesting could hold these people accountable. Right now,
Absolutely.
all you've done is built a whole cabal of individuals who expect to be given money all the time.
Look at how the federal system works in Nigeria, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Every state is required every state
Do
is
I like-
required
I like
to
this.
generate their
I
own
like
funds.
this. We
You
are not-
only get a
We are
piece
not
of
hearing any example from the UK, Nigeria.
Not yet.
Let's go here. Yeah.
you only get a piece from the national government.
Yes.
The rest you are required to generate on your
generate
own as an autonomous state. So guess what? You need 1, 2, 3 to get it done. You're going to raise it yourselves.
All right.
Don't come back to the seat.
How much of
and
that?
ask-
How much of that what the federal government raises? How much of it goes into development, and what's the percentage divide?
Oh, I do not know right now in terms of what the numbers are.
Is
I'm
there a law
saying what
pegging
I'm
that?
saying. Yes, it's entrenched in law.
Is there a law
But what
pegging how much? What the percentage is going to be?
Of what the national government gives to you, of
No,
course.
not what. How much is how you're spending it? How much should go to development? How much should go to recurrent?
Yes, but I will need to get the details for you. I don't know have them off the top
I
of
think
my
the
head
general
right now.
rule in,
But the
in terms of public finance is that no money borrowed should go to recurrent expenditure, and we need to start looking at money coming from central government as perhaps borrowed money, so that as I rightly said earlier, the money actually to pay the salaries should come from revenue generated, and that will encourage the people within the counties who are leading the counties to make sure that there's activities that generate revenue. But very importantly, money that is aimed for development, i.e. money coming from national government, will go into development, because what's happened here is money is going into the salaries of these reps and not going into development. So it might make it's like a business. You don't take out a loan to pay your employees. You pay your employees according to how much profits you're making. Also, for instance, salespeople, they're paid a commission. So, it motivates them to work harder. And maybe this is what we need to do with counties, where there's a law that stipulates you can, wards are paid a percentage of what the county has generated. And in turn, you'll see these reps working very hard.
Good idea. Good.
Or maybe it could have, of course, the the negative effect of introducing licenses and so on to businesses within counties to raise money, which of course would create
But they should do that.
non-conducive business
That's
environment.
fine. You see, people are going to push back, and that's going to be entrenching democracy. So the county executive comes up with laws or new ways of levying people. The county assembly, of course, because they know that this is where my salary is going to come from, they're going to come and try and institute it, and then people will push back.
So you have a robust democracy.
You have a robust democracy, but at least at the end of the day, the money that should go into development is
It
actually
goes
the
into
bigger
development.
It
percentage.
actually goes to development.
So we invert that pyramid 70-30
Oh.
instead of what we currently have.
Quickly though, MPs urge voters to elect ODM candidates, saying Mariga fronted my people out to scuttle the handshake. Leaders affiliated to Kieleweke faction in Jubilee Party yesterday asked Kibra constituents to elect the Orange Democratic Movement's Bernard Imran Koth in the November 7th by-election, claiming that he has the backing of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
This has been a contentious one, hasn't it? You've seen the Tanga faction trying to suggest that Uhuru did indeed back Mariga. Any photo opportunity has been amplified and put in the media. I think we saw the man himself, Mariga, say that Uhuru gave him a glass of water to endorse him. So any opportunity to tie Uhuru in with Mariga is being used by the Tanga faction. But what's interesting is, actions speak louder than words. We're not seeing Uhuru on the ground. We're not seeing him promote any of the activities that the Tanga side are pushing with Mariga. And then that leads to the next article I'm looking at. Should Jubilee be punished, or should Jubilee punish Commander for supporting ODM man in Kibra race? So this is about towing the party line, and then I suppose freedom of expression and speech. And should you be punished? Should you have to follow the party line? But the question is, was this really the party line, considering there's sort of factions and fractions within the Jubilee party? So interesting one there.
Have we had the president speak about this tragedy at Likoni?
We haven't.
No, we have not.
We haven't heard him speak about Likoni. We haven't heard him speak about Precious Talent.
And I don't think we should.
Why not?
Not necessarily, because if you're the president of the country and you speak on each and everything that happens in the country, what are your ministers supposed to be doing in the first place? You have a government spokesman that issues government statements about what the government stand is on the issue. You have ministers in charge of every docket who are supposed to manage these things. So why should the president speak?
People should do their jobs.
Yes, people should just do their jobs. He is the president. He is not a super minister. He is the president.
On this one, I agree with you, to some extent.
Being the president, he's also got our hearts and minds. And I think when it comes to, say, the children, the tragedy with the children I think it was an important opportunity for the president to say something. It'll just help heal our minds, give us a sense of leadership. But forget about just speaking to us, because that could be a stunt in PR. Has he done anything? Has he made any statements about the Ministry of Education? I think that would put some pressure in ensuring that the ministry actually acts on those that were negligent or involved or culpable, to make sure they're brought to book.
He should. But again, I'm saying it. If the president speaks on each and every matter, because when you start, when do you stop?
Well, if you speak on matters, you can bring import to them. You can make them important. The children matter should have been spoken
It should
about.
have, but then the focus becomes the president and not the minister.
That's because of our reporting and our journalism and our hunger for sort of politics.
Yes.
So that could be framed differently. I think if the president came out and spoke, for instance, with the terrorism, we were all waiting and hungry,
Terrorism,
and there was a
yes.
big, okay, it's a national or international
Yes.
cross-border issue. But I think children, I think they should hold a lot more
You
weight,
know,
and this should be.
There is something, when you mention the schools, not everything that happens in schools across the country is reported. When you have a big fire, it's reported. Children die. You cannot overstate the seriousness of that particular tragedy. The issue in Likoni, it's a truly serious thing. It isn't the first time that cars have gone overboard. It isn't the first time lorries have even sort of like slid. Not when there's a ferry. The incidences in that ferry have occurred.
Many.
Yes, they have. I'm simply saying that there is a culture that we have, that we expect the president to comment on each and everything. And I'm saying he doesn't have to.
True. He doesn't have to.
But he should. Where
But-
children are concerned, he should.
This is the Situation Room. 26 minutes after 6 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues right after this.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
And we are live streaming, as we always do, on Spice FM KE Facebook, YouTube Spice FM KE, and also on our website www.spicefm.co.ke. Now let's talk about what Raila did over the weekend in Mombasa. So was it Saturday that we saw him go to the Likoni channel? And he was there, and he was, of course, accompanied by local leaders, and of course he visited the team that's coordinating the efforts to retrieve the bodies of the mother and her daughter. And of course, he was briefed and he was told, this is how far we've come, this is what we are doing, and among the challenges that we are encountering include poor visibility, which is also being contributed by the fact that there's dredging ongoing down channel for a new port. And then Raila issued an edict.
You know, again, there are those who have sound bites that clearly indicate that it was an order. There's reporting that said he asked KPA. Now, if our politician now say that particular news item has misrepresented what he said.
Taken out of context?
Yes, the whole works, but I am not a politician. Okay? One of the things that I think our politics tells us or informs us is that the one platform that people continuously abuse is a church platform. Because the discussion around this revolves around an outcry by Jubilee MPs that what Raila had said were, to quote one MP, they said they're his own jokes. Okay? We urge civil servants to ignore Raila's directive. But the real question here I would ask is, does Raila not have the right to actually issue orders as an ordinary Kenyan citizen? Remember, the Kenyan citizen is the employer of all civil servants. We are, in effect, the employer. Can an employer not give his employees directions? Can he not tell his employees what to do? Let's leave aside that he is leader of the opposition for the moment. Let's leave aside even the handshake. This happens to be a citizen who is prominent by virtue of his political position. Can he not, as a citizen, take charge and tell other citizens, by virtue of examples of what powers the citizenry have when it comes to making decisions about their lives and making decisions about what should happen in the country? This is citizen power in full display.
So you're saying Raila was speaking as a citizen?
I'm saying Raila was speaking as a super citizen.
You framed it this argument very well, and I like it. And according to the Constitution, of course, you've got that to back up your assertion. Article 1, sovereignty of the people. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives.
Yes.
So this is directly.
Yes,
So he does have this.
he does have the powers.
If you look at it that way, of course, most people's lenses are looked or they're tainted with a political tint, whereby he might be acting, of course, as a politician as opposed to as an individual. But both arguments actually can work against him, because we don't want to start saying he's simply a member of the citizenry. We do want to accord him, we who support Raila, such as yourself and I,
I am saying he's all that. All I said
and a
was
bag
for-
of chips.
Yes, and then some.
Okay.
So what? So he had the power to actually issue an order?
Yes, he does. He does. As a citizen of this country,
I think
he does.
what CT is saying is we all do.
We
As
all
to
do.
whether that order is heeded and acted upon. Well,
No, must that order be
remains.
heeded and acted upon?
Actually, it must.
So you today, City, you can go and order that Jogoo Road be closed
Yes.
for 5 days.
Yes.
And that
But,
order must be heeded
you know,
because you are under a citizen?
since you're asking a simple question, I'm answering it simply.
Yes, please.
But there has been no major accident on Jogoo Road. Nothing has happened to warrant its being closed. This was contextual. We have a situation which can be exacerbated by the dredging, as in digging and expanding that particular passage. If you dig the passage and expand it, it means more water comes in, there's more water movement. That's what it means, isn't it? So the idea is, let's not have something that can complicate this particular activity. Stop it for the time being as we look
As
for
we look for
yes,
these bodies.
yes. It is a statement that was made contextually, and it makes sense. If we remove Raila from the equation and say, for instance, the MP, the Mvita MP had said, look, you must stop this particular dredging. Because A, B, C, D.
Because I think it's
Yes.
because that's what it is.
Stop. You're not stopping
I think it is doing this.
Stop. He has every right to do so. He is a representative of the people of that particular constituency. If the MP for Likoni had come and said the same thing, even an MCA, any citizen of this country, whether you are an elected representative, actually has the powers and the rights to do precisely that.
But what I'm saying is, yes, must your order be heeded?
Yes. Will the public servants have to do as he says, or can they ignore such
In this
orders, even
particular,
if he puts
in
it
this
writing?
particular instance, you would hope that they would understand.
You know
Hope.
what he's
They
asking.
understood, yes.
No,
but
no.
Must
But
they heed his order?
what he's asking made sense. Unfortunately, the stuff and content of what he said was ignored. And everybody was in an uproar because it was what he said and he gave. And
Because it is he
it was
is who he is.
Because of who said it.
Yes.
So the stuff and content or the matter of what he was discussing or the order that he gave
Was lost.
actually was lost.
I think the way you have
Nobody
to look
paid
at this,
attention to it because it made 100% sense. In
Yes,
the
it does
context-
make sense
in the
in the
context
context
which
of a
he was
layman.
speaking.
The people
No,
who
no,
are
no.
there, the people
No,
who
no.
are conducting
I'm talking
the
about the
dredging.
context of this tragedy that we've seen right now.
From a
what
layman's
we have
point
to
of
do
view,
is envision a situation whereby an elected official comes and gives orders contrary to what he says. Who then would the public servants listen to? And I think that's where the debate should be, or that's where we should look at, because those are the consequences of Raila issuing such orders. If an MCA or perhaps the MP came and said, actually, no, do not stop the dredging works, and then Raila asserts that we should, who should the public servants listen to? And of course, in law, they would have to listen to the elected officials. Muturi rather himself has said that he's entitled to express his opinion as the AU envoy. Since he holds no government position, I will take it that he was simply expressing his opinion.
the AU envoy, is, of course, is tongue-in-cheek. I mean,
No, it's not. He's actually been appointed a position. Why is it
yes,
tongue-in-cheek?
yes, but you see that when Muturi is saying this, that he's entitled to his opinion as AU envoy. Look,
And he's in his capacity, he's acting with powers vested upon him by countries that are signatory to this. And of
And are
course,
you
it's
saying
to
that
do with
he's an
infrastructure.
envoy?
Are you saying that by
He's
virtue
an
of that,
envoy,
then
just-
he cannot domesticate his authority by virtue
As an
of
envoy?
having- as an envoy? Is
as
that
an
what
envoy,
you're saying?
as an envoy, you don't give orders. You see,
But we've established as
Kenya's
a citizen you
ambassador-
can. So.
Kenya's ambassador to South Africa cannot order South Africans what to do.
Remember,
The AU chairperson cannot
But
come
you
and
remember,
order
but he's
Kenyans on what to
Kenyan.
do.
But
Yes.
he's Kenyan, and that's what we are saying.
Even
By
if he was
virtue of the
the,
fact
even if
that
he was
he
the AU chair
by virtue
commission
of the fact,
chairperson.
by virtue of the fact that he is Kenyan, then he is able to speak in the manner in which he did, and
Eric,
actually give an order by virtue of the fact that
he
he's
is
Kenyan.
a Kenyan citizen who happens to be, among other things, an AU envoy.
Leader of the
These are things
opposition.
he happens to be.
He's leader of ODM.
He wouldn't have been leader of ODM if he wasn't a Kenyan citizen.
Yes.
Just for starters. He wouldn't have been a politician in this country with the clout he has if he wasn't a
Kenyan.
citizen of this country.
Yes.
So his powers emanate from his citizenry, or his citizenship.
What's interesting, it's very clever of Raila, because this is exactly what they're going to do, isn't it? They were going to do it anyway. They were going to stop this, and simply because of what
Let's see if they do.
CT
because they
says,
haven't
it's an
done that
exercise.
so
It's
far.
an exercise in futility. It's going to be impossible. I mean, of course, I would wish the best and better
One really
than what
wishes.
is happening. But if wishes, anyway. The point is, what he said is exactly what's going to happen.
Well,
It's
it
going to
hasn't
stop.
happened
So
so far.
it
So
might seem
yesterday
like
it
it was
didn't
his
happen.
orders, but it's going to happen anyway. So it's quite clever of him.
Well, what do you think? Was Raila actually usurping somebody else's powers when he ordered that the dredging at KPA at the channel actually stop? Or was he speaking as CT and Jerry are saying as a Kenyan citizen who also has the power vested in the constitution to issue orders? 0719 012 600. Good morning. 24 minutes to 7.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
The Nairobi show is officially over, and so as things are being cleared up, so is traffic. There's not much on Gong Road this morning coming towards the CBD and getting through the City Mortuary roundabout, so it's good news for this time of the day. Mombasa Road is moving well right now, and it's likely to become a bumper-to-bumper situation around about 7 o'clock as everybody is on the road this morning and trying to get to work and trying to get to school as well. There's a small accident at Pangani, and this is affecting traffic coming from the Thika Superhighway. So if you get stuck, that's what's going on. They're actually working on trying to clear that up right now. Wayaki Way traffic starts at the 87, unfortunately, and getting into town is going to be a challenge this morning. It's to be expected, and hopefully that will clear up, but it's your normal 45 to 1 hour wait in traffic, unfortunately. All right, we don't know what's happening on Langata Road right now, but there seems to be some traffic trying to get what the situation is exactly. Share that information with us if you have it. Give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's keep you moving this Monday morning and trying to keep you off the roads as much as we can.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 22:07. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation in the room. I'm Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and C.T. Muga. We are discussing the orders issued by Raila Odinga in Likoni on Saturday, where he's actually said, I'm issuing an order that the dredging that's happening down channel should stop so that we can manage to retrieve the bodies. And we're asking ourselves, so what's the big deal? So is it because it was Raila who spoke, or is it because Raila basically chose the wrong words to use, or was it because, it was just politicized, taken out of context?
No, not necessarily taken out of context, expanded really. Remember that there's something that came to the fore. Well, it's been in existence and in the fore, but taken to the fore by the Deputy President recently when he was in jest. It was in jest. He was saying, look, since you guys keep using my name to increase your sales, you should give me a slice of your profits, okay? And what he in effect was saying that when his name is used, sales go up. That's what he said. The one person whose name clearly sells papers and has sold papers for a long time is Raila Odinga. Mm-hmm. But also, if his name comes up, the likelihood of getting mileage in the press is very high. So a politician is a politician. Politicians, whether they're in Jubilee or whether they're in ODM, whether they're ANC or Wiper, if a situation where, say Raila makes a statement, it would be wise for them to be good capital for them to come in and talk about it because Raila's name is mentioned, it will get good press. Look at this matter. If, say for instance, there were issues or supposed issues between the ANC leader, Musalia Mudavadi, and the Ford Kenya leader, Moses Mutangula, do you think it get headline? No. But if you say Raila and Mudavadi, yes, definitely, it's something that people will consider newsworthy.
Also, of course, he's acting in his capacity as a leader. He does have support from, I would say, about 50% of the population in the country, as we saw in 2017. Of course, because we have the first past the post system here, a lot of his sentiments and his people and his followers are not represented. But of course, even in the coast, it's sort of his territory, so to speak. So he's just giving direction as a leader. And the people who would heed his advice, I would call it in this instance, we want to call it orders, but it's simply advice, because unless it can be actually enforced, it's not orders. So if you look at the structures within which he's making these orders, inverted commas, it can't be classified as an order. It's simply advice, and the MPs there are ODM as well. So he can be ordering them, so to speak, as the leader of the party.
So we're just picking up the word that he said, order, and amplifying it, or did he actually just use that word? Do you think he misused the word order in this case?
Well, remember that is his constituency. The coast as well, of course, is his territory, as I say. So as a party leader, he can give orders to his party members. There is that aspect, which is perhaps what he's doing.
Is not a member of ODM. The people who are dredging that are not party members. It's an organization, an institution called Kenya Ports Authority.
Yes, but you can have MPs of the area actually push for orders for them to be either.
So he should have just issued an advisory. Well, first of all, we must acknowledge something, that Raila Odinga was at the coast, and then he went to the channel, and he was received by all the officers, all of them that are coordinating this operation. They received him, they briefed him, and he was given a podium to speak. So he was accorded the respect that he deserves in this particular case, all right? And then he goes ahead and says, I am now issuing an order. Because of a brief that he's been given, I'm issuing an order that this should stop. Wrong choice of words, and then, we're just, amplifying it just because...
Semantics, I think.
Just because he said the word order,
Semantics, because of course the way orders are issued in government isn't simply by utterances.
Written.
Even if the president himself issues an order, there then has to be the instruments in place to ensure that this order is enforceable, or to ensure that this order manifests itself. So somebody standing up, whether as a citizen, as opposition leader, or as Raila, you can make all the orders you want, but unless there's instruments, and by instruments I mean either legislation or some directives that different ministries can put into place, unless those are there to sort of enforce this, the order stands to be just an opinion, as Muturi has said.
It's interesting to note that when he opens his mouth, those opposed to him, become incensed, and all common sense then flies out the window. Because, like I said, the stuff and content of what he said made 100% sense. And if you would, in this case, make an effort to divorce the individual from what he was actually saying, then we see something that actually makes sense in this particular situation that we were dealing with. And it just goes again to show that, it's about the man, the individual, that people are, constantly incensed over and say, what has he said? Where is he going? What has he done? In this case, we're talking about lives being saved. And I dare say that at that point, he was not looking at his political wield at that point. He was not looking at political mileage that he could have gained.
I think that's exactly what he was doing.
He was actually saying, look, this is what we need to do in order to get this situation sorted out.
You see that? This is what we need to do because of what I've received, because of the brief I have, because of the information I have. This is what we need to do. Perhaps this is what we should do. He could have said that, but he chose not to say that.
Yes.
He was basically,
but Eric, leaders
he
are
was
supposed
playing
to lead.
politics.
Leaders are supposed to lead.
He was playing politics.
Well, that is certainly one way of looking at it. But if there's dredging going on, dredging is digging up. That's what it really is.
And
yes, it is.
It's murkying the waters.
Yes,
There's no clear path for
yes.
sight. And if it needs to stop in order for us to find these bodies that we have been looking for the past 8 days.
And you think the Kenyan Navy
then
divers
by
have
all
been doing
means,
that for
let
7
it be
days
done.
and have not known that?
Somebody clearly needed to say it
You
because it was not being sorted out for the last 8 days. It had not been done.
You
Nobody
think the Kenyan
took,
Navy Kano, who is
took,
leading this operation, has not seen that? You
then,
think
then why was it not?
the CS,
Come on.
the CS for transport,
Seen
who's
it and
actually
then not
also
said
come in
it.
there, has
Seen
not
it
seen
and
that?
not said it.
Maybe they have said
Twiddling
it.
our
How do you
thumbs
know they
all
haven't
this
said
time.
it? How do you
Eric,
know they haven't said
Eric.
it?
They would have, in
Eric.
terms of the communication that was put out there, in terms of what was being done, other things were being made clear. We were told about
How
other
do you
entrants.
know
We were
they
told
haven't said
about
it?
other entrants into this operation. Why then we would not have been told about that?
But Eric,
something so important and
the
pertinent.
efforts that the government has made or government bodies have made in this matter, you can't defend it. It's indefensible.
I mean,
everything came too late.
and then we were
late.
made aware of all the things that were being done too late. We were told about additional entrants into this. We were told about then what other plans were being made. If the dredging as a directive was being given to stop, that we would have
Let
been
me
told
ask,
about as
why
well.
were they being even told to stop? Should they not have realized that activity would interfere with this?
My point exactly. You
Yes.
think they haven't realized that?
Of course they haven't. If they had, they wouldn't have
would have
continued.
done it by now.
No, they wouldn't have continued dragging.
You
So
know,
why
And
haven't
the
they
dredging
stopped?
was
Sadly-
continuing just a kilometer or more away.
So why haven't they stopped? That's the
In
question you should
true-
ask yourself.
Have they? We don't know. Have they?
No.
Is the dredging still continuing?
No, it's
It is.
still ongoing.
Okay, but the sad thing I think here is, in true Kenya fashion, we've managed to politicize this.
Yes.
And the
The
stuff
debate
of the
Starting
stuff of the
starting
statement.
from Raila Odinga
The
himself.
stuff of the
No.
statement was not
For
taken
him,
into
for him to give
consideration.
advice or to give an order, he's clearly looking at the situation
Yes.
and giving orders as to what should be done. Now, as opposed to us having a debate
Giving
as to whether
advice is what
hold
you
it.
should have done.
As opposed to us having a debate on whether the content or his
Whether he
orders
has
make
a right.
sense, we're now deciding, or we've decided to debate over the fact as to whether he has a right to say this. What if this is the right thing to do? This is what we should be actually dissecting, as opposed to who does he think he is. And sadly, that's how we've politicized it, as we do with most issues, and they stop being issues. It becomes politics over
But
and
he
over
knew
again.
he knew that this is what was going to happen. That's why he did it.
If I may ask
He
a
was-
question,
he
you
was
ask, how do you
playing
know?
Politics.
How do you know?
Because
Yes.
he said it. Because
Also,
he knows.
said what?
I
He said
think, I think
he
there's
did
been
he
very
act-
little direction here, and there was a vacuum in terms of leadership on this particular issue.
We've had a PS.
And that's why he could actually step in.
Esther Koimet is a respected PS. Esther Koimet has actually been there. Well, yes, she was sent there late. Yes, it was wrong for her to be sent there that late. Yes, but she's been there. She's been on the ground. The PS for infrastructure. The PS who's actually in charge of KPA.
What leadership did she deliver?
So maybe there was a vacuum.
What leadership did she
Direction
deliver?
was lacking.
Succinct,
So was Raila giving
clear-
an order to the
succinct,
PS, to
clear
the CS,
direction
to the
of which way
PKPA?
we should go in terms of a solution to the problem that they were currently facing. That's what leadership does.
You know,
That's what
before-
leadership does.
you know,
Comes in and provides options for solution. We didn't
Before-
have.
Before
No,
this
Raila
order,
came
before
and
this
gave an
order
order.
was given, even okay, which national leader did we hear, of political leader, talking about this incident? Let's just ask the question. Which
Or
one?
to even
Local
calm down
leaders.
and to come in
No,
and calm and
national,
to come in national,
not just local, national.
Even to
the
come in
national
and
leaders
calm-
had come out and they were doing what they could. The local leaders within the Mombasa, yes. I'm talking about other leaders, because this was not something that just involved the Mombasa.
Yeah, even something as simple
It
as a
went
yeah.
beyond the constituency of Mombasa. It went beyond that particular county.
Region.
County,
Yes,
yeah.
it was. What
It
it
went across
represented
the
was something much greater.
And even a simple consolidation of efforts and somebody taking the lead and saying, this is what we are doing as a whole, all of us together, consolidated, moving in one way. There was nothing until he spoke a couple of days ago.
Ndu, don't you think it would be better leadership if actually Raila went, sat, received this brief and told them, okay, you guys, so you're talking about the dredging. So there's a dredging going on. Why can't you stop the dredging? And they tell him this ABCD because ABCD would happen. Or even
How do you know he didn't do that?
Listen. So because ABCD would happen and EFGH, and then he goes out there and says, I have received a brief and I've been told about the dredging and I've advised them if dredging needs to stop it.
Okay, one
And this-
solution.
or
However,
this
do you
dredging needs to
realize?
stop
Do you
it.
also
Instead
realize?
of going there to say, and I'm issuing an order, and he knows very well.
But do
this
you
is not
realize?
a political
Do you realize
novice.
the impact that of
This
what he
is
did
not
make?
Abdul Swamad
Because
Ahmad
of
that
the
we're talking
fact
about.
that maybe they were having all these closed door meetings, you give the impression to the Kenyan people that people sat around a table with their fingers up their noses and not actually doing something that would give the people of Kenya some kind of assurance that something was being done. This man came and stood on a podium and he said, look, this is what needs to happen. And here is the appearance of a solution that is going to give some people some kind of calm and comfort. And that is what he did.
Why
and it
didn't he
made
give
sense.
the order in the boardroom?
Which boardroom?
Where? Oh, my Lord.
What powers does he have to issue orders? I think that's Eric's contention here.
He knows.
It's
no,
interesting
he
because we're
knows-
calling him a
he
national
knows.
leader.
But then he knows that he does not have powers. This is a man who's been at the helm of government. He knows the extent that his power
I think in
extends
terms
to.
of-
He knows the kind of influence he would have on this matter.
Which is power.
And he knows exactly. And he knows how he can not directly instruct. That
Okay,
his-
and
his
which we all
instructions-
know. So why are the
Why did
Jubilee
he come-
MPs getting...
Why did he come out to actually seem to be instructing?
and why
He
not?
knew
Because
that.
he's a
What was-
leader.
and
He
if we're going
knew
to
that
ask
he was playing
ourselves, if we are
politics.
going to ask ourselves, what was wrong with what he said in terms of providing or preferring a solution to this problem that was right there in front of us? What was wrong
I
with
think
the stuff and
what's
content
wrong,
of what he
if you
said?
look at this within a legal framework, is you have to consider that there's elected leaders whom have the powers to give orders. So what if they gave a contradictory order? What would then happen if they said actually keep going and Raila is saying don't? So that's where the contention comes. And also it's important we start to define the idea of leaders, because there's this conflict within democracy and then within our sort of psychology collectively, because we consider Raila a national leader. But if you look at it democratically, we're a first past the post system, which means that the leader is the president. Unless you've been elected, you're not a leader. But of course, we've got our cultural sort of approach to leadership, where we do know that Raila is a leader in terms of the percentage of the population he controls, for lack of a better word, but he's very influential. And this is why we need to start looking at the parliamentary system, of course, as opposed to the...
There's always going to be a way to bring it round.
No. It's we need to reconsider our leadership,
Look,
because
even
here
if
we
go
are.
to parliamentary,
No,
the
at
leader
the crux.
of the minority.
No, the
leader
issue.
of the minority
issue at
cannot
hand.
issue orders to the executive.
The issue at hand here is how we view leadership, because clearly Raila is a leader. I think we've accepted that implicitly or not. We've
Yes,
accepted
he's a
that
leader of the
Raila is a
minority.
leader. Now, we've accepted that he's a leader.
Of the
Now,
minority.
with that in mind, we have to accept that, yes, he can give direction if he's that influential. Of course, these are unspoken conventions. If we look at our constitution, he has no leadership powers. So you can see there's a conflict here between what we want, whether it's culturally informed or not, or tribally informed, and what we actually have, which is the constitution. And this is why we must revisit it and look at adding additional powers to some of these leaders that wouldn't have made it with a first past the post system, so that we ensure, in keeping with democracy and its ideals, that everybody's views is represented.
The ideals of democracy are the majority gets what?
Yes, but you have measures
and
in
the minority
place.
get what? It is very
You
clear.
have measures in place to balance that, because a majority of 51%, you leave 49% of the people out of decision making for the country. So it can lead to a lot of tension, as we saw in 2017. But of course, I'm pushing for the referendum, so I'm bound to argue it that way.
You know, there's the citizen Raila Odinga, who is in reality a super citizen.
What is a
Super.
super citizen? What rights
Eh?
does he have as a citizen that I don't?
None.
He gets
Right.
state
So what is
security.
what is a super
He's a
citizen?
super citizen
He gets
because
state
he's
security and you
Does
don't.
he have superpowers?
no, he's better known than you. He has literally more powers than you because he actually represents, or his voice, his party represents a very large population in the country. So he is a citizen, yes, and has every right like you. But I call him a super citizen in that because of these subsidiary matters that I have mentioned, he is in a position to do things that I cannot do, you cannot do. That's why that's where the super comes from. But he has every right as a citizen to do exactly what he did. The citizenry of this country are the employers of our civil servants. We are the employers of our MPs. We are the employers of the political class. We are the employers. We.
It does say so in the Constitution. All power lies in the people. So
All power lies in the people, yes.
Yes.
And Raila Odinga, I'm just going to go to this. Raila Odinga, yes, he's not super, I don't think. He's a senior
I
citizen.
want to know what this definition of super citizen, because I consider myself a super citizen, whatever that is.
You don't-
Who else is a super
What
citizen?
City is saying is you don't control what you've been saying, you don't control the other. He controls what, 40% of...
No,
what
according
votes
to
did he
according
get?
to
40%
Jubilee
or something?
Insiders, is 30%.
So
In
that's
fact,
it.
bordering
So he
on
controls
20.
30.
You've just
So it
admitted.
must be true.
But there are other people who tell you that it is actually 50, not even below 50. It is 50. If you talk to the ODM people, they'll tell you it is 60.
All right, so let's go with the votes.
So maybe you're looking at 46.
46%.
Yes.
So
And
he
that's
controls-
changed. There's been a lot of defection from the
Since
Jubilee
then.
Party since, because there's been a lot of angst and people feel disenfranchised with what's happened. So I would say he's probably at 55 at the moment. I've jumped ship.
Yeah, that's.
But I want to go back. CT, what is a super citizen? Who else is a
and
super
Wiper and
citizen?
Fort Kenya have also defected.
A super citizen is someone who has understood his constitution and has taken the step of ensuring that they actually enforce the powers that are bestowed upon them by this particular constitution, by our constitution, and uses it to better the lives of other citizens within this country. That's a super citizen. He doesn't just
spokesman
look
for
after,
Raila. You
he
do it
just
very
doesn't
well.
look after his own interests, but he looks after the interests of others. That's the super citizen.
As you've mentioned, who a super citizen is, CT.
Including Akuru
I want to
Aukot,
ask,
Salim
Who
Mudavadi.
else?
He's a
Who
super
else?
citizen.
No.
Why have they
no,
not
no, no,
spoken
no.
about this matter?
Thank you. That's what I was about to say.
Why?
If we're talking about other leaders, who else came up and spoke? Who else came out and gave any kind of direction? Who else came out and saw what and looked at the operations of what was going on and said, now I want to lend my voice and lend my hand in this particular arena? Who else did that? No.
They've all kept quiet.
But CT just
Everybody
told us
kept quiet.
Not everybody must speak. We must get away from
No.
this.
He said
I
not
did-
the president must not speak at all times.
bro.
That is what he said. In this case, which other leader
Who should have
came out
spoken? That's
like
what we
this?
should be looking at. I
Yes.
think Joho,
And
of course,
he
as the
clearly
governor, should have
came in
spoken.
and filled a gap that everybody had clearly left a vacuum in.
Who
he
else?
did.
Who's
he
this?
did.
Who's this everybody who has left a vacuum?
Anyone who
The
considers
governor of the
that
county in
he
which this
should have
tragedy
spoken.
happened did
The
not
governor of
speak.
the county has been there.
And what has he
And
said?
what direction did
What
he
is
give?
he reported to have said?
What direction did he give? The kind of direction that the Minister for
So
Infrastructure
he was
also
waiting
gave?
for his party leader to come and give direction on his behalf.
Oh, really?
Maybe you can say that's how ODM works.
Who they say has no power, who you say has no power.
Maybe that's
who
what,
he was
yeah,
waiting for.
he has delegated his power as governor to the party leader.
Well, you know, one of the things about democracy is it can allow you to really take journeys in any flight of fancy that you enjoy. And when we're discussing matters political, you can take that to the absolute nth, if you like. The truth is this: it is Raila who has spoken. If you're talking about national leaders who are of some serious repute, he has spoken, and it's because he has spoken. Now there's all this dust being raised about the powers he has. He has the powers.
But should we then allow anybody that would be involved, so people who are in infrastructure, the Marines, anybody, so, the Architectural Association of Kenya, should they be able to come in
Yes.
and
Order.
make comments and so on?
Yes. Look,
The general in charge of the Kenya Navy should have said, well, because my officer is actually
He
in charge
didn't.
there, I should.
he didn't.
I issue an
But
order.
He
He didn't.
But he didn't.
He
and
didn't.
Raila
He
did.
didn't what?
He didn't
didn't
issue
issue
what
an
you're
order.
saying.
So
He
why is-
didn't.
Well, that's
He
what,
didn't
that's
come
the
out
question
and
we're
speak.
asking.
The
Should he?
mayor, do we have mayors anymore?
No, we have governors.
Okay, we have governors.
The governor of Mombasa and the governor of Kwale have not spoken.
They didn't
Well,
speak.
Yes, they didn't.
And Raila
They have
came and
not
spoke.
issued
And then
or-
everybody
they have
went up in
spoken.
arms
Well,
because it was Raila
correction,
who spoke.
Correction. They have spoken. They have not issued orders. They did not issue orders.
What did they say?
They condemned? They
okay. So did
commiserated
we.
with the families. They offered their support. Governor Joho offered support. Governor Joho actually dedicated.
They can
was it 2
all go
million
and suck a
shillings into
lemon.
this.
What on earth is this? You have a proper tragedy and you're telling us they said this and platitude, the other.
And then it
How does
created
that help?
resources.
Which resources?
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Good morning. 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
So, Wayaki, traffic starts from Kino to Udhiru. It's Udhiru. And that's pretty far back on the road. So the roads are flooded, unfortunately, due to the rains that have hammered throughout the weekend. And that makes things a little clogged up because everybody's moving quite slowly. And combined with the numbers in terms of population, it's going to be an issue. It's a slow day ahead in terms of traffic on Wayaki Way. There's traffic along Thika Road and it's already built up, though it's moving slowly all the way from the Panga. All right. The parts of Nairobi are not allowing me to to articulate as well as I would like to. But there's traffic everywhere, including my mouth. Give us a call, 0719-012-600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Well, good morning to you. 2 minutes past 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE. We are also live streaming on YouTube at Spice FM KE and on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Please join in on the conversation on our hashtag Situation Room on Twitter, and also you can follow us on Twitter, SpiceFMKE. Our frequencies around the country: we are in Nairobi on 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 Malindi. Did I say we are in Mombasa, 87.9, where Raila Odinga was over the weekend, and he went to the Likoni channel and he issued an order that the dredging that's happening there should stop, so that it makes it easier for the teams that are helping with diving to be able to recover the body of mother and daughter, who this tragedy actually happened last week on Sunday. This is the 9th day today, and you're asking ourselves, is the issue the word that he used, order, Was he? Did he mean actually that he's issuing an order, or was he giving advice, or was he actually just telling these people, "This is what you people should do. You should basically just stop that operation"?
Yes.
Or was he saying, "This is an order. You must stop that operation"?
No, I think politics has so pervaded the issues that we deal with in this country that even when something that would make absolute sense is misconstrued then as something else. And here we are. I mean, we've thrown people into this, rescue mission that has not yielded any fruits for so long, and here we are finally being given a solution, and it's being made public for people then to say, yes, here's an option that we can actually follow, and then it's turned around and thrown into the ring of politics once again. And it's not in this case, it's absolutely unnecessary to have that done. I can see why they would be up in arms, but wouldn't it make sense then for people to say, look, it actually does make sense. The stuff and content of what he was actually saying is a direction that we should want to follow.
Should have followed
a while ago.
He needn't have given those instructions or that order if common sense had prevailed in this matter. I mean, does it require someone really very clever to understand
this? And then you know what,
yes.
you even
Yes, it
further,
does.
you know what you do even further? Guess what? He made the order when no one else did. You want to politicize it, but the guy still comes out smelling like a rose.
But let's look at his powers in terms of constitutionally or legally. We have to understand that power is held at two levels in this country. There's national government, and then of course we have the county governments, which are sort of semi-autonomous governments. And if we take into account the fact that Joho is at the helm of this county as the governor of Mombasa, and Joho of course falls under ODM, of which Raila is the leader of ODM, you can then see where Raila might get his powers, unwritten or not. But you can see there's a structure that actually gives Raila some power there.
You have really looked for it.
I haven't. It's not stretching it at all.
Really looked
We have
for
to
it.
understand that
let me
counties
ask,
are semi-autonomous.
Yes.
Jerry, could you read what the Constitution says about...
I don't have it in front of me,
About
so you'll
what?
have to talk a little bit while I Google it. About
No,
what
just the powers of the citizenry. You don't actually have to read it.
All right.
For you to read it, it means it exists.
Oh, right.
That's what I was highlighting.
Right.
Look, what we understand as power, or what is structured as power in this country, is not the only power that exists. The church doesn't exist within that power structure that you've just outlined, and yet they have a huge influence on their followers.
Influence, yes.
But that's power. Eric, what do you think power is all about?
Yes. And nobody has actually, I don't know why you're hammering on the issue of power.
No,
Yes, you as
I am
as a citizen, you have power.
I do.
Somebody who's influential citizen like Raila Odinga has power.
More
As-
power.
Yes,
More.
as a citizen has power, right? But can he issue instructions?
Yes, he can.
He knows.
He can.
He knows that he cannot
These
issue
people who
instructions.
are civil servants, or what we call members of parliament, or the political class, this power is given to them by the citizenry. Please understand, given.
Yes,
Meaning
and-
they have it. You can't give something you don't have.
Elected. When you're elected, it doesn't mean that everybody who competed in the last election has power.
They do. They do. Because if you talk about influence, unless you got 0 votes,
Influence.
So
yes.
Somebody gave you that
yes.
mandate. Somebody gave it to
Somebody
you.
said, we think you should be the leader.
Yes.
It's just
Yes,
5 people.
but a majority did not think so.
Precisely.
And that's how come you ended up not being the winner.
Hence, that term I was referring to earlier on, remember the super citizen thing? Yes. When someone has that greater influence than others, then they stop being ordinary, they become super. And this one, remember, no one elected him
We
to
could
be
also-
president.
we could
right?
also be very-
But they voted
people did
for him
elect
to
him.
be.
People, especially of that area,
No.
did elect him. We could interpret the Constitution.
They voted for him. They didn't elect him.
They didn't elect him.
Voted for him.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it could be argued, and we could give a very broad interpretation to this provision of the Constitution, or be very mischievous about it, where we say the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected
Oh, here we go.
representatives. Now, if we look at that provision. If we look at that provision, who is their democratically elected representative? They will be ODM members. Now, who gives direction to ODM members? It will be Raila. So indirectly, we could translate Raila to have power as a democratically elected representative. That's, of course, painting or broadening the interpretation of that.
Very.
Of that. No, not
Very
particularly.
much so.
And for me, I'm beginning to see different avenues emerging as we have this discussion that actually give Raila the authority to have made that order. The first one being through the Constitution, in terms of as a citizen, you do have the power to order your public servants or to order the people you have put in power. So as a citizen, and of course there's the assertion that he's a super citizen, whatever that means. I still haven't agreed with CT completely. I think we're all equal, but maybe some are more equal than others. But so as a citizen, he's got that. Secondly, as the opposition leader, he does have a platform within which to make statements such as these. And then thirdly, as I've tried to explain within the Constitution, the fact that the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. This is exactly what they're doing. People are exercising their power through democratically elected representatives, in this case maybe Joho, of whom his boss would be Raila, being in the ODM party. And then we've got the other pillar in terms of where he might get these powers from, which is the unspoken convention we have in Kenya, that he is a leader of certain communities, and a leader of, I think we said we were at 47 or 46% as of the last election of his followers, and we've concluded that that's increased over time. People have moved to his side. People have softened towards him.
It's cancelled out.
No. I'm sorry, you can't just make such a statement.
Just because Jerry has now defected,
I haven't defected.
We can also count that Musalia has actually defected as well. Let's pick a call from Mombasa. Good morning, Samuel.
Yes, good morning. How is everyone?
Good morning.
Fine, thank you, Samuel.
Yeah, this is the whole issue of Raila issuing orders. If we look at every area where there was a contest, and those who won and those who lost, there's some who lost with a very small margin. If we were to take the same view to the counties and the constituencies and the ward levels, would create a lot of unnecessary confusion. Because everyone who seemed had a sizable support would be propping up and issuing orders left, right, and center. In the name of public interest.
We could be opening a can of worms, you're right.
I think it's important to allow those who are elected, those who hold power according to the Constitution, to do their work. Otherwise, we'll have people claiming, I had 49% support in the county. And the governor is there, and you're having two people, tussling over power. I think it's important to sometimes, and Raila is not a novice. Raila has been in this game for a long time. When he talks, I think he knows exactly the
impact it will have.
Impact of his words. I'm sure he doesn't just issue idle words. They're very well chosen, well educated.
So with that in mind, do you not think perhaps he's just amplifying the sentiments of the handshake, which I think has a higher principle, or it's a more overarching goal for the country as a whole, as opposed to these individually elected leaders? What he's doing there is, as I say, amplifying and crystallizing the sentiments of the handshake, that there is some sort of coalition government almost. No,
I think this brings me back to the time we had the coalition government. There's a time Raila did a similar thing. He tried to fire two ministers, and that time he was a prime minister, but he was overstretching his powers. And it brought confusion until the president put his foot down and said, no, they're going nowhere.
Let's look at his words verbatim. He says, I want to give an order. So he hasn't given an order. It could be argued that's the case. It's actually advisory. He says, I want to give an order here that the dredging work stop immediately so that those who are working here can work without interference. So I want to give an order. So he hasn't given an order.
All right.
I think it's a phase of words.
Yeah.
I think he was very, very specific about it. I want to give an order. He would like to. If he was in a position to, he would. That's what he's saying. But he's not. So he's saying, I want to give it. No, when you give an order, you give an order. But when you say, I want to do something, doesn't mean you have done it.
Speak when you say, I want to give an order. That is what exactly you're doing. You're giving an order.
No. You're saying you would like to.
He would like to.
Not, I would like to.
Actually,
I want to give an order here.
Let's look at exactly what you're saying.
Who's extremely calculated.
I want to give an order. He's giving direction to his leaders in terms of he's giving direction to Joho and those who can give orders to the MPs of the area or to the ministries that might have some of his people in them. So he wants to give an order. He's talking to his party.
Let's look at the backdrop through which
someone is still on the line.
Sorry,
can I ask Samuel a question?
Yes, please.
Samuel, do you understand the powers you have within the Constitution as a citizen of this country?
Yes, I do.
And what are they?
First of all, to do exactly what to call out the government, to express our displeasure when things are going wrong, to demand that things are done properly. Those are some of the powers that we have as citizens.
Is there any citizen of this country who has less powers than that?
None whatsoever.
Precisely. Now, if Raila is a citizen of this country, why then do we want him to have less powers than other citizens? Because what he did was just exercising the very powers that every citizen of this country has.
No, I think we're not understanding each other. It was within his right to call out those who are working there.
Yes.
I think the problem here is his choice of words. And I think he knows that very well.
He does, Samuel. Of course he does. I want to bring in Walter as well, who's on the line. Walter is in Nairobi, and Samuel, you can still stay on the line. Walter, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes. Let me bring in this dimension. It reminds me of some story we were told we were in primary school. That this guy had some guests and needed to borrow some sufuria, and he goes to a neighbor. And he borrows this big sufuria, and the neighbor gives him the sufuria. Then he takes time, doesn't take it back, and the owner of the sufuria goes back, and he tells the owner of the sufuria that actually your sufuria was expectant and it gave birth, and he gives him back some small sufuria. And this guy accepts this small sufuria. Why? Excited. Wa sufuria yangu imezaa. Yeah. So the next time when he goes back for his big sufuria, this guy tells him, "Hey, ile sufuria yako ilikufa." And all of a sudden he feels shortchanged.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you mean sufuria yangu imekufa? And hey, si iliza kitu inazaa inaweza kufa. So I'm wondering, what games are we playing? If Raila, he has the powers to go and be briefed and all that.
Yeah.
And that is okay. Then why don't we ask, being briefed as who? Then all of a sudden, when he purports to give powers which we think he doesn't have, we
Start making noise.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
It's true because, Eric Latif, you actually brought that up earlier because he went and he was welcomed by the different state agencies. They briefed him on what was going on.
They accorded him the
They accorded him that respect. And that was not a problem until he opened his mouth.
No, even when he opened his mouth, actually they gave him the platform to open his mouth. It is the choice of words, like Samuel is saying, the choice of words when he says, I want to give an order here. That is, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and that's what I'm saying. Raila knew exactly what he meant by that, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he was saying that, and he knew the impact of his words and his choice of words.
What's interesting, it's only his political opponents that are reacting to this.
Precisely.
You don't have the
Of
people
course
in power
his supporters
actually
would
reacting.
use.
Well, it
KPA
seems that the
didn't say
president is
anything.
his supporter.
Yeah, KPA didn't say anything. If we're going to look at the
Not only
state
KPA,
agencies,
have you had any minister complain?
exactly, no ministers complained. The same minister for
They just
infrastructure
haven't-
that you talked about, who went and had less than little direction.
Eric, remember recently when there was some water project that was inaugurated in the western part of the country, a government official actually complained.
That?
Later,
Yes, he complained that
3 years later.
3 years.
With the
Eric, you know,
Report.
you have a sense of timing that I still have to understand.
All right, so let's say 3 months later then.
I still have to understand your sense of time, but there it is. I'm simply saying this. The people who are mandated to actually ensure that these things happen are civil servants. And they are the first people who would say, but excuse me, this isn't so. But as you correctly put it, they're the ones who welcomed him.
They welcomed him.
Walter asked the right question. Who are they welcoming him
Exactly.
as?
They welcomed him as whom, and then suddenly he speaks, and then they're asking, who does he give this order
No, no.
as?
They
As whom?
didn't ask.
They didn't even
They
question
didn't
it.
ask. The
They
people
just-
who asked are those with some kind of
It's
political
just his
affiliation
political
to him.
opponents.
They
His political
just-
opponents are the ones who had a problem.
The officials know where their orders come from, and that's why they did not go ahead with his order.
No, I dare say that
That's
the
why
officials
the
had a
dredging-
light bulb
by
moment.
receiving
I
by
dare say
receiving
They
him.
received him.
Stopping
They
to
gave
dredge.
him
Where
a
did that
tour.
order come
No,
from?
they gave him
Stopping
a
to
tour
dredge,
of the
they
area.
didn't.
No, they gave him a tour of the area.
Yeah, because
they
he's a
showed him what
political
was
leader.
going on. Exactly.
He's a
They
political
had
leader.
accorded him that respect of leadership that they knew he wields.
And then he misused it.
And then he opened his mouth, and I dare say gave them a light bulb moment when they said, haha, this is actually somebody who is coming in and giving us some direction.
And
At
they didn't
least
do
giving
it.
some kind of comfort. Well, the day is still young. It's 7:18. You never know what's going to happen today.
Saturday to Sunday to Monday.
8 days of not doing anything.
No, you really can't say that. It's not that they haven't
Look,
been doing anything,
look,
really.
look,
No, really.
Folks, if since we're dealing in semantics, did he say stop the dredging now?
Since we're dealing in semantics.
He said he wants to give an order. He hasn't given it yet. So let's wait and
yes.
see.
That's what I'm saying. 718, he could give it today.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Sisi tunataka kusema does not necessarily mean that tumesema
No, it doesn't.
in Kenyan speak.
If you make this thing political, then nothing that is said is actually ever said.
Nothing is ever said because we always say "Sisi tunataka," that's Kenyan
Because
speak.
it is said, but it is not really said.
Also,
Kenyan
I think
speak.
Raila was speaking on behalf of the Kenyan people. The dredging was supposed to stop because it's interfering with this search. A lot of Kenyans are, they were hurt by this incident. It's a matter of the heart. There's a child involved. There's a lady
Yes.
involved. Lives have been lost. So
And it's
maybe
a
he was just
needless-
echoing
needless death.
our sentiments.
and giving some kind of leadership.
And placing some importance on the value of human life here. Why should the dredging continue? It's a commercial activity. Let's stop that for a minute so that we can retrieve these bodies and bring some dignity back, as opposed to, can you imagine commercial activity and so on going on and these bodies there? What are we saying about the value of human life? There's some sense of human dignity that we need to preserve. And I think Raila managed to actually put our sentiments forward as a human, I don't know, as people.
Being.
He
as a
played
human
politics,
being.
like you said. This is going
We
to
can politicize it if we want, or we can just say, actually, he has got a point.
The dredging
He's
is gonna
trying
stop.
to aid the recovery of the bodies.
The
That's what
dredging
he's
is going
doing.
to stop, and it's not going to be because Raila issued an order. It's because
Well,
it was
it's up to
planned.
you to
Something
decide
was gonna
why-
do this.
why
Still
it
gonna come out
stopped.
smelling like a rose.
That Raila issued an order. Well, yes, he was playing politics to it. I still think so. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 20 minutes after 7. When you come out of this break, of course, it's Succession Mondays. So we'll be looking at that.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Intelligent humor and nostalgic music.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
That's part of the show.
All about 94.4 in Nairobi, 7.9 in Mombasa,
94.4
102.5 Kisumu,
Spice FM,
96.7
Nairobi.
Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We're broadcasting the Situation Room on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, and also we'd like you to join in the conversation, hashtag Situation Room on Twitter, and our handle on Twitter is Spice FM KE. So today is Monday, and that, as always happens on Monday, Njeri Thorne comes in with her crystal ball. She shakes it, she takes a look at it, and then she tells us what she can see. And this is talking about the politics of the future.
Yep. Now, we're always talking about the presidency and who's going to be at the helm of leadership in 2022. But of course, we forget there's different arms of government, isn't there? You've got the executive, you've got the legislature, and of course, you've got the judiciary. So in terms of leadership, all those count. And I want us to look at the executive of which the presidency is part of. And who which ministers are we going to have in 2022? My crystal ball has been very intricate this weekend, and we've managed to delve right into who's going to hold what ministry in 2022 based on a few things that the crystal ball was telling me. So, for starters, we have to remember that most governors will have sat their 2 terms and they won't be able to run for elections. Now, they're not going to go back and be MCAs in their wards. Everybody aims upwards. So, they'll be looking at securing higher positions, maybe at a national level, so maybe Senate or MP. But of course, what they would really want is to be ministers, or CSs and PSs as we call them. And as a result, they will be actually getting this as a reward for having managed campaigns for the different presidents that will be running. This is how I see it. So you'll have, for instance, Mandago, who served his 2 terms, very popular in Uasin Gishu, in his county, and what you'll find is he will easily be sort of, I don't want to say bribed, but he will be rewarded. He will be enticed with a position in cabinet if he can move his voter bloc to a certain president. So in this case, it could be Ruto or it could be Gideon Moi, depending on which way he leans towards. My take is Gideon Moi, and then as a reward, when Gideon Moi does come into power, what you'll find is that Mandago is rewarded a position in cabinet, so CS of energy, for instance. And this will be the running evolution across different counties. So I can actually go through the different ministerial positions and tell you who is going to be minister of what and who is going to be PS of what.
In whose government?
In 2022. Well, we have to decide in whose government, but I think they'll also be clever. They will go for the winning horse. They'll put their money behind the winning horse. That's what we're talking about today.
All right, so crystal ball is on governors ascending to the cabinet.
Is it ascending?
Well, you said
Is it a move up?
They don't go down.
Well, I think it could be horizontal.
If you move still in executive but at the national level, I think that's ascending.
Actually, yeah, it is ascending. But in terms of budgets that they're controlling, you'll find the counties have bigger budgets than some ministries.
And direct mandate. And here you can be fired by somebody just because he doesn't like you today and he liked you yesterday. Or he can be insulting you at public rallies and telling you, if you don't do your job,
you will see.
You will see me.
And of course, you have more of a moral standing and legitimacy because you've been elected in as a governor. So I think other than governor, I can't see where you'd be ascending to, from governor rather, other than presidency or maybe DP. So they will have to be rewarded with a CS position. I think that's where they'll be looking to. Sadly, that's the nature of our politics. And what this is going to introduce is more politicians into the executive, of which we've been trying to run away from. We've wanted to put technocrats into these positions. So we have very few technocrats in terms of...
There's been that argument that technocrats also go into politics and then they come from politics and they can come back into government as technocrats.
But I think
that they've tested.
What we did manage to do as a government is actually have the PSs as technocrats, but of course that too had to be balanced politically. We've got our tribal balances, regional balances that the president has to do, otherwise people start crying foul. So it's the president is caught between a rock and a hard place. So if he's picking a technocrat, it has to be from a particular tribe or a particular region, and of course that interferes with the ability, or we're not going for the meritocracy aspect, or we're not picking a technocrat based on his ability, so to speak.
Okay, back to cabinet and
back to my cabinet and governors. Now, what is the most powerful cabinet position? It would be interior
and coordination of national government.
And that's what I would say would perhaps go to Kilifi, because it's got one of the biggest populations as a county. I'm looking at Kilifi. We have, at the moment, of course,
Amason Jeffa King.
Yes. And of course, he has been at the fore of security and comments on security. So you can see why he would be.
He has been at the fore of security.
He has been commenting on a lot of issues, security. If you go back, last year he was commenting on a lot of issues of security.
and you believe that the citizenry of Kilifi County voted him for this particular activity?
Amongst a number of other issues, but my point is he's got a population of 1.1 million rather. And as a result, this is a heavy block for any politician looking to bring in voters. I'm talking about a presidential candidate looking to entice a certain governor to bring in their block to his campaign. So they would have to reward him quite heavily. So if that's one of the strongest cabinet positions, I can see Amason Kingi there.
But is that the biggest?
It's not. I
in
mean,
terms
you've
of
got
numbers?
Nairobi. No, you've got Nairobi, you've got Kisii, you've got Kakamega,
Kiambu has
you've got
more.
Nakuru. We've got to be very careful, of course, with Kiambu and Kikuyus and the powers that they're seen to be given.
Well, we don't have any
My
governor
crystal
actually
ball
who's-
tells
who
me.
served 2 terms in Kiambu.
Absolutely. So maybe we could have Kabogo back next time. So not sure what will happen to Waitito. Of course, my crystal ball can tell me all about that over the next weekend. And
He
we
can go
talk
to Interior.
because I want to talk about Waitito.
He can go to Interior.
Good Lord.
Or coordination of national government.
In terms of tourism, Ministry of Tourism, I see that going to Joho. I don't see Joho ascending to DP. I think I've mentioned that previously. So I think Joho would get the Ministry of Tourism. Nakuru, of course, we haven't had a governor run 2 terms. So I think Kinyanjui will stay as governor of Nakuru. Lee Kinyanjui, that is. Who else has served
Kwale?
2 terms? My crystal ball hasn't told me about that yet. But what I'm trying to say here is 2022, our cabinet will be made up of former politicians. And to me, I think it's a sad state of affairs because we're not giving these positions to the people who deserve them, but we're giving them as political rewards for having brought their voting bloc, so to speak, to the particular presidential candidate. And is this something we can stop? Is there a different structure of voting or parliament that we can bring in order to ensure that we have the best people? I mean, the executive is responsible for policy design and policy decisions which affect the lives of all citizenry. It's responsible for listening to the legislature, listening to their debates, and actually implementing policies that reflect what the citizenry want. Now, if we're bringing in people because of as political rewards, it's very dangerous. And that's what I see happening in 2022. I've gone into the nitty-gritty of the different individuals, but that's besides the point. What I want to discuss is, should we be bringing in politicians into positions that require a lot more than sort of your political power?
Can I ask why it is you assume that these politicians actually bring voters into the fold for the then sitting president?
You'll see they usually control, you'll find if they've been voted in as the governor, it's as a
They
result of
actually
their
do.
popularity.
Let's look at the last 2 governments, all right? So Uhuruto 1 and now Uhuruto 2. Uhuruto 1 had Charity Ngilu, had Najib Balala, had, what's the name? Kingi? Kingi, right? No, not Kingi. The man from Malindi, right? It had some of them who were politicians. In fact, we had to have a
Yes,
by-election
I understand,
in
but
Malindi
why
because,
do you assume that these people have votes that they actually bring to the fold?
Why do you assume they don't? I
They
mean, the way
don't.
politics works
They
is
don't.
that
Isn't that
Let's
how-
take
isn't-
Central
isn't-
Kenya, for instance.
Isn't that how we
who
ended
is
up
it?
with
Who
Charity
is it
Ngilu?
who pulls the voters? Is it these individual politicians or is it Uhuru?
it's the individual politicians you'll find. Well, it's a balance of both, and it depends on where.
In
If you,
Central,
let's
yes,
take
the leader.
Wasingishu. Let's take Wasingishu. You saw Ruto.
Central. My discussion was Central. Let's start with Central.
Central Uhuru, Ukambani,
Ukambani, it's divided.
It was
between
Ngilu who brought.
Ngilu and
Kalonzo.
And Kalonzo is
So-
divided.
So Uhuruto could say that Ngilu brought them the votes, and that's why she ended up.
Okay,
in the
then let's go
cabinet,
to
because she was-
Wasingishu.
Wasingishu, we
Ruto.
saw a very... No, it's not Ruto, because remember Ruto wanted to put his guy, Bukezi?
I'm talking about Uhuruto.
Buzeki. Bukezi.
Buzeki.
Bukezi?
Bukezi, we have to determine who that is. But the person we know was called Buzeki. Bundotich.
It's Bundotich.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
Bundotich.
Buzeki.
Right.
Do you remember Ruto wanting to put his guy and enforce them on the people of Wasingishu? And there was serious revolt against that. So there, I think it was the other way around, where it was Mandago who brought votes onto Ruto.
Are you aware that the citizens of this country are sophisticated enough to determine that?
Are we?
Yes, they are.
Is the
They are.
electorate sophisticated
It's
enough
a
to
debate that
determine
we're
who
going
they...
to continue having. They are.
All
They
the
can
time.
determine that they may vote for you at a national platform, but they may not vote for the person of your party on
On the ground.
Yes, they can divide that very, very easily.
So it's not the people who bring votes. It's rather we're saying it's not politicians.
It's not the individual.
who
Not the
then-
individual.
Not the
It's a party
individual
leader.
politicians that are brought into the fold to necessarily garner, a percentage of votes to make a decision, but it's the individuals on the ground, you and I, who cast our ballot that make the difference. Are we saying that there's no strategy to bring in politicians for their individual clout and their
there
poll?
are very few politicians who have enough clout to actually bring in people. Let me give you a case in point, like say Kwale. Mvurya
Mvurya.
was liked by the electorate. He has proven that he is an excellent governor. They voted him in, and he is of the Jubilee Party. The vast majority of the people who are his MCAs are ODM, just so that you understand. So it is him, the individual, but he doesn't control the votes. It's him they vote for.
How many votes did Jubilee get in Kwale in the last election? If you compare to the same same county in the previous election, in 2013 and 2017, if there's an increase in the number of votes that we got there, then you can say, yes, because of having Mvurya, we actually got more votes.
As whom? As
Because-
Jubilee?
Yes, at
No,
Jubilee.
the point Eric is making is a valid one. I'm simply trying to push one particular point, that there are very few individual politicians who can actually garner votes. That's what I'm trying to say. And they tend to be leaders of political parties.
All right, so you've got Raila,
Yes.
Mudavadi.
Not individual politicians, say, as in a constituency, they don't have...
But there's
that
an issue
No,
of
it's a
rewarding the
trickle-down
people.
effect. The way in which Raila would garner that support would also be atomized into the different counties. So he'll actually have somebody who has support in a county already or who has support in a ward and bring him to his party. So it works both ways to a certain extent. But what you'll find is if somebody has been voted in, so let's say Oparanya, he's very influential, his constituents or his county residents are very happy with him. So he will have a sway in their decision making. And of course, he's had, or people who've had 2 terms have had more chance to have more influence, even on the sort of mechanics and the of the politics within the machinery, rather, of the politics within a county. So you're going to see they've got a lot of power in terms of mobilizing people, understanding the different communities and organizations. They have got a lot more power than the leader at the top, I find.
It's a long and winded conversation, this one.
It's actually a simple conversation which is being made
0719
wind.
0719 012 That's 0719 012 600. Chime in into this conversation. Also on Facebook, Spice FM KE, where we are live streaming. And also you can tag us on our hashtag Situation Room through our Twitter handle, Spice FM KE. Good morning, 25 minutes to 8 o'clock.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Waiakiwe is an absolute mess heading to town. Been on the road for almost an hour and sijafika at 87. So the 87 outward to the CBD is proving a challenge. Thika Road traffic starts at Safari Park. Patience is a must-have virtue for Thika Road users this morning. Eastern Bypass, today, not today, is what everybody is saying. You're going nowhere. We are stuck. We cannot move. And that is what everybody is saying. All stops, jam, jam, jam. And it's not a good thing. It's not a confectionery for breakfast. We are actually not moving. Waiakiwe, always the complaint as well. All right, if you find an alternative route, if you have some other information that we need to know about to get people moving on Monday morning, do give us a call kindly. 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
It's Succession Mondays on the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Jerry Thorne's crystal ball this morning is showing her that some governors who've served 2 terms are likely to end up being in government in the next government as cabinet secretaries, which also now brings in the question: should we have politicians or former politicians serving in the cabinet, or should we retain it as it is currently designed in the constitution, that we have technocrats coming into government, people who are outside parliament, actually going into the cabinet? 0719 012 600. I'm opening up the phone lines. We'd love to know what you think.
Well, yes, of course, the very nature of our politics is one that rewards for political mobilization. And that's what we see happening in 2022. We've been having the debate in studio today as to whether it's the individuals, so the Mandagos and the Johos and so on, that bring the voting bloc to the presidency, or whether it's the candidate, the presidential's candidate endorsement on this individual that brings them the vote. I argue that it's more the individual that brings these blocks. Of course, you do have some power from certain people. So you'll have maybe Raila and Uhuru. They would have that influence in terms of their endorsement. An endorsement by the party of a certain candidate would bring or would rally up support against him, or rather for them. But having said that, you will find places like Uasin Gishu. I like this example because it's a classic example where you had somebody at the helm of leadership in the DP, Ruto. He tried to impose his candidate on the people of Uasin Gishu, and there was revolt against that, and Mandago came across very strong, which goes to show that the people of Uasin Gishu like Mandago, and he can actually sway their voting patterns or sway their decision making at the ballot. Now, if we're to take this as an example and maybe say 50 to 60% of counties would work like this, then we begin to see what would emerge as a reward system for these governors, because what will happen, because they can't run again, given that they have a 2-term limit, they will then be rallying up support for their bloc, their voting bloc, i.e. their county, for the presidential candidate, and they have to be enticed somewhat. So what we'll see is a lot of politicians, a lot of governors coming into the executive in 2022. And whether this is good for the country or not, I think that's the question we need to be discussing.
I think another
today.
way of looking at how we end up with politicians, because we've ended up with politicians in the cabinet, is also to see how the president is trying to show the people that elected him that, well, yes, you elected me, and now I have your son or your daughter working with me.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that
It's
way,
a
then you can
thank
see
you. It's still a reward.
It's a sort of a reward, but rewarding the people, but using somebody who is popularly known to the people as the tool of reward, if you may want me to call it that way. So if you look at, for instance, Munya, why Munya is in cabinet. If you look at why Balala and, like I said, Ngelu.
Everybody
and
wants
the
their
others,
person. Every
it's
region
because-
wants their person.
Yes,
yeah.
and this one person, because he's a politician, therefore he has got more visibility than somebody else who's not a politician.
But also not more visibility, but more power and influence. And then as a result, he can influence the votes.
Jerry, I think you are abrogating power wrongly here. I mean, I use the word wrongly very directly. You are assuming that when individuals within a certain political space decide to vote for someone, it is because that person has power. Can you not see that it is the people who have the power? They are the ones who have decided to vote for this person.
What
Same
informs,
example.
who or what informs their decision, CT?
What informs them is what they want.
And no,
A case in
how
point,
do they know what they want? What informs them? Is it the media? Is it the individual personalities? Is it issue-based?
I'll give you an example of Kwale. Mvurya worked for some NGOs for a long time, and the NGOs were development NGOs, and he did a lot to ensure that people who didn't have the capacity to get educated were educated, the usual development issues, and he did it over a period of time. So he had a track record for doing something that not many people had done. So when he entered politics, they felt he'd replicate the same. He had done something, people had seen it. Now,
They're also looking, if I can just, they're also looking at inclusivity on a national level as that particular county.
Yes.
As a county that had been many times forgotten, and he did this for them.
Yes.
Or at least held the promise to do so
yes.
for them.
So the people decided. To understand this, let's go back to 2007. The ODM so-called brigade. What many people don't understand, what ended up as ODM with the DP Ruto as part of it and Kalonzo didn't start that way. It didn't start that way. The people within that particular area, not just Wasingishu, North and South Rift, the people, not the individual politician. The individual politicians had affiliations to other parties, but the voter population there were very clear about the direction they wanted to go.
Actually, CT, I don't refute your point totally. I will ask how the people decided. You've given a good example. But your point actually reinforces what I'm trying to say. If the people have decided, Oparanya, the people have decided, so they're likely to then follow what his suggestions or what his direction will be on who to vote for at a presidential level.
It's a little more complicated than that. In Kenya, it'll then depend on which party affiliation you have. If you're really genuinely popular, then the party doesn't really matter. But not
if
many
you're not,
people. Then
you ride on the party.
Yes, yes.
But what parties do we have? We have people at the helm of certain
But those are
parties.
the
And at the moment, it's just...
You
So
are
to be honest,
discussing
it's
the
just
party.
Raila, because we don't even know in terms of succession with Uhuru, who's going to be at the helm of that leadership. So at the moment, the only leader we have, and we're looking at, that can actually sway votes based on personality at the helm and party is Raila.
And Ruto.
No, Ruto
Let's
can.
bring in
Ruto
Evans.
can.
Evans is calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Evans.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Evans. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I wanted to share two things. One is that a lot, the referendum that is being proposed might, number one, we are likely to have a scenario where state governors might be accommodated in some kind of a structure. There was a proposal, whether famous or not famous, to have some kind of regional leaders ahead of governors. This was protested by governors recently in a press conference. But yes, it might be one of the proposals that might be brought forward in the referendum if it will be there, and that might change the dynamic. That is number one. Number two, as to whether the individual politicians or the party leaders galvanize the vote, I think it works differently in different parts of the country. There are places like Nyanza and Central where individual politicians might not have a higher clout as to contributing to the party leaders. The party leaders normally determine where the voting goes to. But there are places like, if you see the focus on Western, specifically Western Kenya, by politicians and the way they voted over time, it demonstrates that they don't really listen much to the party heads per se, but that the individual like regional leaders make as to where they vote.
So that's the Wetangulas, Boni Khalwale, and so on.
Yes, that's why you'd see like Boni Khalwale shifting to another place, and whether you like it or not, it receives some kind of attention.
His followers go with him.
Attention in the country. He might not make much difference, but then he makes some level of difference. Yes. As to whether we need technocrats or politicians as ministers, I am a technocrat, but I think technocrats have not really, in the last 10 years, demonstrated good performance as expected. I think technocrats are working in places with organization and codes of ethics and regulations that are unstandard.
And the government is not.
when you take them to the government where everything goes, where you go to a meeting and there's a new directive that affects the policy and you have to accommodate it, and there are juniors who are more senior than you because they have the ear of the leader. I think they're struggling. So I would suggest that we retain PSS as meritocracy goes for PSS. We get very competent PSS. But politicians, I think, if you look at Muchuki, a politician, did a wonderful job. If you look at Martha Karua, a politician, then as the justice minister, she did a good level of, some kind of a good job.
Not wonderful.
a goodish job.
She was a technocrat, though.
There are instances where she probably she was not respecting the constitution, but then I think she did a good job as a justice minister. As a lady, she really demonstrated that this ministry was relevant and made a contribution. I'm not sure if you brought another lawyer in the same position as a technocrat, what they would have done compared to her, or you brought a environment expert. You see what NEMA is doing. It has technocrats, but what is it doing? It took Muchuki a very small time to clean some parts of Nairobi River. So I don't know.
Maybe we can empower the technocrats a little bit. You feel they don't have the political power or the ear, as you say, of the leaders. They can be easily undermined within the structures that they work in?
I think their training and orientation experience, they have wonderful experience in the corporate world, but if you take them to the political world, they do not have the required experience because if you look at the way, for example, we've been handling the conversation around SGR. The guy in charge is an expert. A former CEO
he's a financial
of a bank. An excellent student during his time in school. He's a track record as a technocrat. But if you look at the way he's playing with policy, he gives a directive, SGR to take goods to Nairobi. Tomorrow, no, we'll wait for consultation.
Do we maybe need to depoliticize the ministries somewhat? Can we look at working towards that? Because there's also a lot of politics in that. So if we can remove the interference of maybe the politicians in ministries, I think we would run better as a country if it was technocrats that were running our policies and designing.
And how would you remove the politics?
No, those are discussions that we need to have in that,
But also
when appointments are being made, we're having to respect the tribal balance.
I think we should just be open and look at
balance.
the cabinets that we've had, the two cabinets, right, Evans? If you've given the example of people who are politicians like Michuki, you've said Martha Karua, I'm sure you can mention many others, but also let's look at the current one. How would you rate the man in charge of Interior right now?
The man in charge of Interior right now, I think Saitoti did better, if you ask me. In terms of getting our security intact and reducing the foreign attacks, the guy in charge of Interior now did well in education, but remember, he had a very strong support in Magoha as the head of National Examination Council. So who was, like I'm saying, at a level of either parastatal or at the level of a PS, we need a technocrat. But at the political position, at the minister's position, I think two things. At the policy level, we need a technocrat. But at the top point, the minister, I think we need two things. We need a politician who has experience to work with the politicians. You see, you wake up today and Parliament passes something. A technocrat is not used to that kind of environment because you have a 5-year strategic plan that you follow faithfully, sometimes guided by consultants. And then people who are working within your environment are regulated and they understand the code of ethics and the plan seems to be reviewed and polished over time. Then you come to a place where a plan X can be rejected tomorrow, you brought plan Y. So they seem to struggle, if you ask me. Then get it as faster because politicians have, most of them are career civil servants, if you look at it. So they understand the games. The happenings within the ministries.
Right.
So, and then we don't just need politicians, we also need them to be answerable. I think I like the idea of politicians being answerable to Parliament every week. I think it gave
the parliamentary system.
Yeah, it made them much more accountable. If the case you're dealing with in Mombasa, if it was in the Parliament, the minister would be sweating. But now he's not sweating. He's going to sleep peacefully. Nobody is putting him under pressure to give us timelines and actions and plans.
So you want a Prime Minister's question time?
Exactly. They need to tell us, what are you doing? Because we cannot ask them every day. Today, they go to committees. These committees, give example of the sugar case. They go to committees, they even self So Parliament is much more bigger in terms of putting them to account. So I would personally, as a technocrat, say politics and being a minister is not a thing for us.
Okay. Evans, thank
Thank
you
you
very
for
much
your
for your
insights.
contribution.
Great ones. I like the idea that he talks about the importance or the fact that we feel the need to absorb these governors back into power, and that maybe there's been talk of government being structured so that we do absorb these guys back into power. And I think that's because we do realize the power that they wield over the people. Because if they didn't, CT, as you're suggesting, then we wouldn't be looking for mechanisms to absorb them back into power. They clearly have an influence on our voting patterns.
The office gives you power. That's
Yes.
not what we're discussing.
When
Well,
you're out
having
of
been given
office.
that
Yes.
power, they then have the influence of the people. It doesn't stop immediately you leave office. They got into office because
This
the people
I
gave
would
them
like
the
to
power,
see.
and they get more power
This
by
I would
being
like
in
to
office.
see. We have governors who are no longer governors. What powers do they
Do
have?
they have?
Those, the former
Well,
governors.
Yes, what powers
Well, the
do
fact
they
that they
have?
were voted out speaks volumes, but the ones who've been re-elected,
It's the
I think
office.
that also speaks volumes. It's this idea that we need to reabsorb them. Why?
But then we must
Why
ask
not
ourselves,
let
Why-
them just
why-
go out into the wilderness?
Exactly. Why not just let them be?
we who are
Maybe they just want
voting,
to retire.
Because
we who
they
are
have
voting
an
for them,
impact on the voters.
We who are voting for them, are we voting in the individual, or are we voting it? Are we voting in the promise of what they're going there to do? Because then that could answer what we have right now. Are we still looking at this particular individual who would actually then go and pursue issues, 1, 2, 3 needs, my needs as a personal, as an individual, or my needs as a community? Because then you answer that directly. Are we looking at individuals then who are going in, or are we looking at, blocks of issues that we deal with? Moving on to another aspect, I think it is very important that you do have technocrats at a certain level, because they are the machinery for the know-how. They are the machinery for the, getting it done, the mechanics of running a country, basically. So it's very important to have them at a certain level. However, there are positions that you have the mix up with politics, and so there should be, if possible, a clear demarcation between at what level you have the know-how, which is where you have the technocrats come in, and then the politics of it now, where you would definitely have your ministers at that level, then who would be able to make those decisions with the political side to everything.
This is a system we had actually. What we're talking about here is how we can tweak the constitution back
Right.
to what it was, because our ministers were
Well,
politicians.
politicians. And you know what they used to do? They used also to hold the president to ransom. And that was one of the reasons why you're actually removing that, is so that as the president, as the appointing authority, you're not coming to tell me, I brought you the votes, so you can't really tell me A, B, C, D.
Are you
So
talking about the
Separation
previous
of
system or
powers
this
is
one? The previous system.
No, the current
This one.
system in terms of the separation of powers is crucial for checks and balances.
I personally agree. I agree with you on that one. You see, if you consider, just take for a moment, just pause for a moment and consider. The accounting officers then were the PSs.
Yep.
So what this gentleman who called in said, it existed. It actually worked. And it is not the minister who gave himself the job. The president gave you the job.
There
Yes.
were appointments.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it meant, you see the check and balance you talk about, it was there. Now, when you tweak it and then you bring in a presidential system, because that wasn't, when you bring in a parliamentary system, because that wasn't a parliamentary system, then it gets even better, because the accountability is now even greater.
How?
It's two-layered,
How?
multi-layered.
How?
Because the layers of accountability are many. I'm going to explain. On the one hand, you become the prime minister or the leader of government because your party has the most MPs.
Yes.
Or you can bring together a coalition that is able to give you the majority.
Yes,
All right?
yes.
Now, when it comes to the appointment of ministers, the appointment of ministers is determined by the prime minister.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Not the president.
True. The,
Yes.
the head
So-
of government
yes.
is appointing
So,
his government.
Yet the president has powers and very specific duties. Multi-layered.
No. So
Wait,
the cabinet.
what's the no about?
The cabinet will still be appointed by the head of
Yes,
government.
it will be.
Who will now be called the prime minister.
Yes.
So where will the cabinet come from?
It doesn't matter.
So should we not just have the current technocrat, so the prime minister can actually appoint from outside parliament?
No. What this gentleman has mentioned, it's not that the technocrats are not capable people. It's just the environment in which they work
They operate
and what
in.
is they required. Fish
They
out
don't
of-
have the wherewithal.
They
It's
don't.
too fast
They
and
don't.
dynamic.
We have
It's throttling
It's
at
because
best.
our system is politicized. That's it. That's why.
Even then, the fact that, he said,
And-
people who come from corporates work with a 5-year strategy and, it's long-term planning, whereas here and in politics, it's very fast-moving
fluid.
and dynamic. Exactly. And so
Yes.
what tends to happen is you can have a directive passed or some legislation passed that means you have to amend your complete 5-year strategy, and they don't have the wherewithal.
So then
as
maybe it goes back
technocrats
to
to
whereby
handle
we
this.
say it is important then for us to then make decisions on politicians who then have an esoteric knowledge of particular fields, and I think that is important as well. If we're looking at the current arena where technocrats are not able to thrive, or are the proverbial fish out of water, then we do have politicians who know the
You
business
don't
and the
have many
channels.
politicians with esoteric knowledge on any industry, other than maybe Martha Karua and the law. You don't have,
What?
you don't have an engineer who's become a
Hey,
politician. No,
really?
let's be honest.
Really?
Okay, let's look
What?
at our MPs.
We have-
Let's look at
we
our
have
MPs.
teachers
You have a
who've
few
become
lawyers and
politicians, we have
teachers.
lawyers
You have
and
lawyers and
No.
teachers.
You have accountants.
Jerry,
you have
you have-
lawyers.
no,
Jerry, pause.
Yeah.
Pause.
Unless you
No,
think
Jo-
that
Jerry,
only
pause.
professional.
I
only
don't know any
professionals you know.
engineers
Pause.
who have become
are
who
there.
have become
If you don't know them, it
MPs.
doesn't mean they don't
It doesn't mean
exist.
they don't exist.
Okay, but
Raila Odinga himself
by
is
and
an
by-
engineer by profession.
by
There
and
are
by,
many.
apparently.
That's
There are very
one
many.
example.
There are very,
We
very
have
many.
economists. We have.
Wah.
Wow,
We've got all
there
of
are
them.
quite a number.
Goodness.
Okay, we can
I
go
think we
through.
need to
I'll
make
give you
the
10
decisions.
MPs and you tell me
I
what
think
their
we need to
professions
make
are.
decisions. I think we need to make decisions on politicians who then
Okay,
have
start.
the
Tell us.
know-how.
Start with the politicians. Let's hear.
let me open Parliament's website. So when you read, I can tell you their CV.
Yes.
Right? We can do that.
Hey.
There are many, and
And this particular parliament is by
Not
far
with the
just
sort
about
of
the most
knowledge,
educated
not
parliament
not
we've
with
ever
the
had.
sort of knowledge that is needed, for instance, for infrastructure
don't
development.
change
You
the
need
discussion
people.
to
No,
knowledge
when we
and-
say
and
esoteric,
competence.
what is the definition of esoteric? It's very specific and deep knowledge of a particular field.
Yes,
Yes.
and it is
right?
not you
Now,
to
the
decide
depth of
they
that
have.
knowledge goes further than what we have in
No.
our legislature.
No.
Let's say
It
you
goes-
don't have.
Jerry,
I don't know any.
you
Do
are
any of our
making
MPs have a
yourself the
PhD?
sole prefect for determining the expertise here, and we're telling you our
No,
crop of
it's
MPs
universally
have the
accepted that
capacity.
if you perhaps have a PhD, you have esoteric knowledge, right? Now,
Not
do we have any
necessarily.
MPs with a PhD? Do any of our MPs have a PhD? Open the website and check.
How
I
many
don't think
banking
so.
CEOs have
Have
PhDs?
PhDs.
Okay, let's start there.
Dr. Mwangi?
does our Chief Justice
Those
have a
are
PhD?
not PhDs. Those
Does our Chief Justice have a PhD?
PhD.
Actually, I saw the deputy chief justice was doing her masters just the other day. So
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are asking ourselves whether we should actually have politicians still going into cabinet, or we should retain it the way it is right now, as only technocrats going into cabinet. 0719-012-600. That's a number you can call in. I'm opening up the phone lines. Please join in the conversation. And also you can comment on our Facebook page, Spice FM KE, and Twitter, Spice FM KE. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it up.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
The problem on Wayaki Way is that there's heavy flooding roundabout to Zero, and so it's causing traffic on both sides. So you're going to have a bit of a problem getting into town and also getting out of town. So take a nap if you must, because unfortunately right now you're not going to be moving. All right, some good news. Use the service lane from KCA Survey on Thika Road and thank us later. That is an alternative route to get out of the madness that is Thika Road this morning. All right, Langata Road, Gong Road, and Jogo Road, not so bad. It's normal at this time. Trying to get into the city center or out of the city center, the traffic is as expected, and it'll take you where you're going very shortly. It is bumper to bumper, but at least it is moving. Mombasa Road, right around the Airport Road junction, there is a policeman who is arresting people for overlapping, and it's causing some traffic because he's stopping roads, basically vehicles in their tracks. Hopefully he'll get his quota sorted for the morning and we can get moving. 0719-012-600 is the number. Call us if you find something that we should know about.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live streaming on Facebook. You can watch us even as you get off traffic and get into your office. You can watch us on Facebook, Spice FM KE. You can also stream us live on YouTube, Spice FM KE, or on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. The conversation happens on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is SpiceFM. Spice FM KE. Please follow us. And also our hashtag is Situation Room. Our telephone lines 0719 012 600. Today's Succession Monday is a bit different from what Jerry is saying.
What's different?
In that, we don't have names today that we're saying this so and so is going to be
predictions about the future. Right? It's my crystal ball talking to me as usual, and it's told me that what's going to happen in 2022 is that we will be absorbing those governors that have had or served their 2 terms, will have to absorb them into the executive, and they will be the next ministers. And the reason we'll be doing this is because they will have been enticed by the potential or the presidential candidates to bring in their voting bloc or to help with the mobilization and galvanization of their voters to bring them into whichever party the president is on. And whoever wins has to then reward them. Now, this will lead us to having a lot of politicians in government, which I think is what the debate is about today. Should we have, when I say government, in cabinet, you do have a lot of politicians in government, generally speaking, anywhere. In the executive, of course, we're looking to have technocrats because it's about designing policies and understanding things at a deeper level. We use the word esoteric knowledge, and I had a lot of sort of backlash from you guys when I suggested that maybe our politicians, i.e. the MPs, do not have the esoteric knowledge that is needed to run ministries. So we don't have a doctor, for instance, or somebody with a PhD in infrastructure, which we'll find out there, but you won't find it in an MP. I know you guys fought me on that, but it's the truth. Most of our
you did.
Most of our MPs
need a PhD to have esoteric knowledge on a subject.
I think I'm having to oversimplify it for purposes of illustration here, but to have esoteric knowledge, you need to have been in the field for X amount of years. You need to either have studied it for X amount of years or practice. Absolutely. To really understand things to the level that somebody who, is running an infrastructure project, you need that esoteric knowledge. Our MPs are generally, either they've been journalists or either they've been we have some teachers because of the influence they would then have over the community. At the moment, you have people who've been on radio. So you have a lot of, Sabina Shege. They had that influence from having been on radio. Now, what esoteric knowledge, I'm sorry, Sabina, nothing against you, but let's use Sabina as an example. Does Sabina have, other than understanding the community? And I don't want to trivialize that. She has, she understands.
She has a master's in education. Mm-hmm. That's why when she was chairing the education committee, she actually brought in that knowledge in terms of she has studied it. All right. So she hasn't practiced it per se.
Now, as a technocrat, I think you need more than that. If you're going to run a ministry, you're going to need a lot more than having studied a particular subject. You're going to have worked in that field, have had exposure in that field for a lot longer. This is to be a cabinet secretary. This is my take on it. It's not just a matter of having done a master's in something. It's not a matter of, knowing a little bit about something. You look at, I was going to bring in other countries, but you look at other countries, right?
UK. But the UK is a good example.
No. Actually,
let's just use that. Because
UK is a perfect example because a lot of what we have...
We have a history.
We have a long history with them, and a lot of what we have was actually borrowed from them. So they are a perfect example.
Although for me, the UK isn't a good example here because they do have reshuffles and people move from cabinet to cabinet, which negates from this notion of having esoteric knowledge in a certain field in order for you to run that cabinet. So the UK isn't the best example, but you'll find other countries whereby, whoever is at the helm of, say, roads and transport has been an engineer for over 30, 40 years. So they understand certain things, town planning and so on. And this is where the conflict comes in. When you have a politician who has a different agenda and is driving something that will be at loggerheads with somebody who has a 5-year plan as a technocrat. And this is why we had that caller calling in and saying, actually, the environment is just not conducive for the technocrats. Now, if the politicians had a better understanding of how things run, I'm using infrastructure primarily here. So if a politician understands that we need a 5-year plan and it has to be implemented in different phases and so on, even when he's making policy in terms of legislation and, coming up with directives and so on, he will take this into account so that when the the PS has to implement what is being talked about, it's been the directive that he's been given is implementable, because that's exactly what the technocrats are finding very difficult to do. The fact that these politicians are the ones running the show and they have no understanding of how things run in terms of policy implementation and them coming to fruition and crystallizing. It can take time. We had that example. So you can't keep changing different from one policy to another, where you've given one directive, you find a CS is now working on that directive, he's put measures in place to ensure that it materializes, and then suddenly you change. If politicians had a better understanding of this, then we wouldn't have this conflict between technocrats and politicians. Now, the politicians don't, because, as I said earlier, they don't have esoteric knowledge that we speak of.
Jerry, there are very few countries that have what you're suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you go to the advanced, whether it's America, one of the things about the public service is that it's more or less constant. Now, these are the people who actually run the government.
Right.
In this country, PS, that's why you have a head of public service. They run the government. Ministers are not really required to have that much knowledge.
That
Not
is
really.
policy level.
Yes, because the people who actually make decisions in the things that ought to be done are not them.
No.
They are informed and they're told. Now, with this new system that we have now, we actually expect them to do what PSs do. They can't. It doesn't matter how much knowledge they have. If you're brought in from, as the gentleman who mentioned, the fields they are experts in that field, but not in a political setting.
I think that ministers,
Not even in
generally
this
expected.
And I think that's needed. I think that is needed
What,
at
politi-
the
a
PS
politician?
level.
But that's
no,
why
at the PS level.
That's why
A
PS
CS,
has
I
that.
suppose,
Yes.
needs to be able to
PSs
run an organization.
Yes, they can.
It's
And
their
they have-
management and leadership skills that we're calling upon with the CS,
You
as
see,
opposed to...
But also the PSs, they need to understand the government machinery. Because that's what
That's
the
how
government
government
is.
works.
How government works.
Is that
Yes.
the political side of it now that you're bringing into
That's
the
actually
fold?
now just understanding government. This is the purely administration.
Of which you think the PSs don't?
They
PSs do have that.
They do.
PSs do
They
have
do.
that, and that's the biggest thing that they need to have. They need to know, if for me to implement this policy, for me actually to move forward what the ministry or the government, the cabinet has said that we need to execute, for me to do this is how I need to make sure that it happens.
Okay, so back to the
government
question before
machinery.
this topic ends. So do you think the governors that we will be absorbing into the executive have the wherewithal?
Well, when you say governors, I trust that you're referring to the position of governors.
The governors, the
So
sitting
we're saying
governors
the
who've run their
individuals that
2-year
we have
terms.
now,
We're
the
talking about
individuals that we have
retiring
now,
governors.
Retiring governors will be absorbed. This is what my crystal ball
Yeah,
told
and
me.
you- and-
Retiring governors will be absorbed into the executive for whatever reason, whether it's because we feel we need to absorb them to thank them, whether we feel it's because they will actually be bringing votes to whichever presidential candidates comes in and they need to be enticed and then rewarded later. But we will be, and the crystal ball has said categorically, we will be absorbing a number of governors, those who've served 2 terms, they will be absorbed into the government by being given ministerial positions,
How
i.e.
many,
the
how many
executive.
governors do we
They'll come
currently
in-
have? How
they'll
many do
come
we
in
have
and-
who've
and
served 2 terms?
They will release the fortified oils.
Yes, they will. They'll do worse things.
They'll do
How many governors do we currently
So-
have who've served 2 terms? I'm going to ask the next question. I'm going
How
to
many?
ask
How
is-
many we do have?
Yes, how many
Who have
governors
served
2
2
terms?
terms.
Who are serving 2
terms.
Yes,
terms?
Who
and
will
how
be
many
retiring.
If we look at the
how
entire-
We
many
can't
ministerial
overlook
posts?
somebody like Joho,
If we
let's
start
say.
from number 1,
Why?
001. So number 1, Joho. Number 2, Kilifi. We have Mvuria. Number 3, we have.
No, Mvuria hasn't served
Mvuria
2
hasn't
terms.
served.
He
2
has 2
terms.
terms,
Yes,
my
this
dear.
is the
Two
second
terms.
term.
This is the second term.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes,
Oh.
this is his
Mvuria is in
second.
the second term. If we go to now, Lamu is where we don't have a second
No,
term
we don't.
governor.
Kimani.
We don't have the same in Taita Taveta.
There's
But
a
then
point.
we
there-
come all the
there's a
way.
point- there's a
Kivuda,
point-
Kibuana,
there's a point I'm
Ukambani.
getting. There's a point I'm getting at here. It isn't. The second term cannot be a qualification. it has to be who the individual is and what they have shown they can do, not just because they've served a second term. Yes.
No,
They may have failed.
Well, the fact
Yes.
that they were
Both
given
terms.
a second term is indicative of their ability.
In this
It's-
country, not necessarily.
to a certain extent, you can. Well, their ability either to rally up people around them or
Not
their ability to
necessarily
deliver.
that also.
One way or another, it's
There were
indicative of
there were
something.
those that were not given a second term, but now they are serving as acting treasury.
Yes.
My point is, when we bring Joho into the executive, when we bring
Why Joe as an
Mandago,
example? Why
because
him?
these are people who are obvious to the population,
So
to
then
the
let's look
populace, that they've
They're
served their 2
influential
terms,
in the
and they're not
politics of
going.
the
So, what
matter.
do you think is going to happen
What
to
makes
Joho?
you think Joe is influential?
He is in
Oh,
Coast. He's very.
commands,
No,
he commands a
he
certain-
doesn't.
You think it's Raila's endorsement
Yes.
of him that okay?
Yes.
Whichever
Because
way, he has now
essentially you're
become
going to tell me that
influential. As a
Joho-
result, he has become
You see,
influential.
there's a false premise that you had that governors come in with votes, and you'll say that Joe.
I gave you the example of Mandago. Okay, let's talk of Mandago.
Will bring in votes.
Kingi.
He
Let-
doesn't have those votes to bring.
Let's talk of Mandago. Mandago, he was able to actually reject a candidate that his party leader brought in. And with that rejection, he got the support of the people and they were able to push away. Is it Buzeki or Bukezi?
Buzeki.
Buzeki, that whoever it was that Ruto was trying to enforce on his people. So that's an example of where the governor is actually bringing the votes to the president. Now you're going to tell me that governor is going to be let to run wild and let loose? No, he has to be absorbed. For many reasons, he has to be absorbed because he
You
can
know,
bring that whole block to a potential president.
I don't really understand.
Did
this.
Buzeki also bring votes to the same
No, what would have
candidate?
happened, Buzeki would have been now the structures that CT is talking about, where it would have been the DP's endorsement that would win him votes.
When did I say this? Why are you attributing things that
No,
you are
you-
saying?
CT
and
is actually
thinking?
saying the people
Yes,
make the decision.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's
What
I'm
informs?
saying.
Who informs the people?
The people
They
make the
inform
decision
themselves.
because of what
They
they
know
want.
what they want.
They know what they want.
The people
You
they know
can
what they
say
want.
what you like.
And-
Why do you think we have sayings in Kenya? Kula kwa so and so, kura kwa so and so. The population understand whom they want. It has nothing to do with what you've studied.
That's a
what you
very
think.
naive perspective that the population actually chooses their leaders. What
Hey,
informs
but you've
their
given us the
opinions?
example of Mandago right here. You've just told us.
No, that's
that
not the population.
people-
That's Mandago himself.
the people
he
chose
wields that power
and the
over people.
chose Mandago, and yet they still gave their presidential
But
vote.
Mandago, what
Yes,
informs
to
the
Ruto.
people's?
Yes.
What?
They still gave their presidential
No,
vote
after
to
some
Ruto.
negotiations with Mandago, whereby he said,
No.
"Yes, now you have my vote."
Let me open the phone lines 0719 012 600. Also, you're commenting on Facebook, and we can see that Spice FM KE, and on our Twitter handle Spice FM KE, and the hashtag is Situation Room. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM at 8:15.
Calling all Spice FM listeners. Feeling a little light in the pocket? This is your chance to win as much as 5,000 shillings every day on the Spice Drive with me, Monique, by simply participating in our brand new Spice FM Mystery Voice Challenge. If you think you can recognize this mystery voice, then call into the Spice Drive every weekday or participate via social media to claim your prize. Spice FM. Sugar, spice, and everything nice.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Phone lines are open. 0719 012 600. 0719 012 600. Today's crystal ball is saying that the retiring governors are most likely going to be in the next government. And the question then comes up, should we have politicians coming into the executive, that is the cabinet, or should we just retain it as has been designed right now to have technocrats sitting in cabinet?
I'd like to ask, we go through all having these conversations and we say that, there's no need for acclamation or applaud when, government leaders or government officials do their job. Because that's what we put them there to actually do. We voted them in so that they could actually go and work on our behalf, right? So when we see that their terms have come to an end, where then does the need lie to give them tokens of appreciation by giving them these positions if they were actually just doing their job.
What tokens of appreciation? These people get pensions. These people
This
make
exactly
sure they
that's
have
what I'm
perks
saying.
and
So why
forth.
give them a position in the next
Why are we
government?
giving them more things in the
exactly.
first place?
Why are we giving them another position?
Why
to
don't
say
they
thank you
stand-
for the work that they were
could
supposed to be
stand
doing
as
in the first
senators.
place?
They could
Exactly.
become MPs.
It's not we
Exactly.
who are giving them. It's the politician who's running for higher office
No,
who's
no.
likely to give them.
No,
the we
they are
here-
appointed. They are
the
we, is the
here
country
is
as
the
a whole.
representatives we've given the power. We
Yes,
Oh.
we the people at that level.
We. Yes.
Why do we
We.
feel the need then to propagate tokenism again and say, okay, well, thank you for the job that you did here, have a position as CS? Why do we do that? Why?
Because we're that way designed. It's
No.
the very nature of our politics. This will happen. I guarantee you. We'll speak.
It's already happening. We have two former governors.
Mm-hmm.
Two former
They've
governors
been
in the
absorbed
current.
either into State House.
In the
or-
current, in
Mhm.
fact, three actually. Now, if we're going to
Kinuthia.
State House Comptroller, so we've got Ukur Yatani, he's a former governor. We've got Peter Munya, he's a former governor, and they are in cabinet.
The fact that they are in cabinet doesn't mean
It is
you
exemplary of what happens. You've got to understand the psychology
I
behind.
have understood
Mm.
that it happens, and I even know the examples that are being touted by Eric. But it doesn't mean that it is a good thing.
I'm not saying
It
it's
is
a good thing.
horrible practice that should be discouraged.
Exactly, because we run the risk of having the same individuals recycled throughout government over and over again.
And then you
for us
wonder
to
why things never get better.
Exactly, we perpetuate the problems that we've had from time immemorial, and we go round and round in
It's-
circles.
it's-
Hamster wheel situation over and over and over again.
It's a bit, it's a bit of a presumption to say things would get better. I wouldn't mind Oparanya, for instance, or Kivuda, for instance, in cabinet. So it could actually help things. If you've run two successful terms, it could be because you were very good. It's indicative maybe of your ability and capacity.
You know, the two
So
gentlemen
maybe,
you
I'm just
mentioned-
I'm giving you the
two
other side of the
gentlemen you
coin.
mentioned they were ministers even in a previous government. Yes. So if you brought them back, they would be excellent examples because, as you say, the very thing you're saying, they have
Alfred Mutua, perhaps. He hasn't been a minister, but if he's managed to run two terms successfully, if you say it's the people that vote them in, the people were very happy with his performance in order for him to come back. So if we work on that premise, if you follow the trajectory there, what you'll find is that he'll make a good minister. I'm just countering your argument of your presumption that, we keep bringing these guys back and that's why we can't get things done. Recycling and...
I have all the phone lines open. Swale calling in from the University of Nairobi. Good morning, Swale.
Good morning to sir.
Yes, welcome to the Situation Room. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, my thought when you talk of absorbing the governors who are going to expire or their terms are going to expire this term,
Yes.
It means that you're going to ensure that the youth will lack jobs. Also, those guys, if they have served the 2 terms, I'm sure that they have gathered a lot of weight and they can go and survive anywhere. No, not even being appreciated by giving them the position in the executive of the nation.
Thank you, Swale. Yes, that's very excellent.
Yeah.
I agree
So
with you fully.
they've earned enough money, basically. Their pockets are heavy
Yeah,
enough.
they have a lot of weight and we don't have anything to do with them. Let them just go and continue with their
They had
business.
it-
Will they
had a
agree
chance
to
to
do
do
so? Will they agree to do so?
What are
They
they
don't
going to
have a
do? Go
choice.
kicking and screaming
Power
into
is
government?
addictive. No, power is addictive.
They must agree because you see when you're talking of unemployment rate of the youth, which is leading to depression and stress, and hence the youth killing themselves. They're supposed to appreciate, not just waiting for the time that when they see this has happened, then they start yelling up and down and meeting all media houses. Maybe they are the ones who are the reason.
So you think the youth might have
Yeah.
gotten those cabinet positions?
Okay, I'm not sure.
Swale, ask her why not. It's a good question. Why can't?
Because
why
you
can
need a little
not?
bit more
No,
experience.
you don't. You can gain experience on the job.
Oh, well, I think our
They
taxpayers
haven't-
would rather an
they haven't
experienced
got that
person. You don't want
experience,
interns.
I'm sure. Okay, I'm sure they haven't got that experience, but where will they get that experience if
you don't give them a chance.
Not in cabinet.
we
That's
must
not
be-
where you come to gain experience. In cabinet, you come to discharge your expertise for the good of the people. It's not the place
They
to come
must
and be an
given
intern.
us those opportunities in order to get that experience. Yeah, thank you.
Swale, thank you
you.
very much. Let me also bring in James from Nairobi. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you all?
Good,
Good,
Fine,
good.
thank you, James.
All right. Now, I think if you're governor and your time is up, you retire. You go home.
Thank you.
We don't need to recycle you.
Uh-huh.
is not a matter of what next.
Uh-huh.
It's a matter of you going home. Your time is over.
Uh-huh.
Your terms, you've served 2 terms. Whether you performed or not, your time is over.
Do you think
It's just like telling me because a teacher is retired, we can take him to another school. We see them opening their own schools. Let the governors also, if they have the potential, they open up their own governments.
They start their own counties.
The thing of recycling these people is bringing this country down.
Yeah, you had a chance to do something. That's you would have done it then. We're not going to give you another chance, but we could give somebody else an opportunity to.
You give somebody an opportunity. There are people who can do things better, it's only they don't have opportunity. So we keep on passing the mantle.
Do you think they'll accept to retire peacefully and gracefully, or do you think they'll kick up a fuss?
But even if they kick a fuss, so what?
The fuss will be the fuss that they will kick up will be that they will disrupt the elections in terms of whoever is running, and this is where the enticement comes in. And what I was talking about.
But don't mind them. Even if somebody like only one governor, he has only one vote. We the people can decide.
Thank you.
We the people are the one who are
That's
supposed
very
to
idealistic. Sadly, that's not the true nature of events on the ground.
These guys are novices, Jerry. Many of these governors are actually
what-
serving their second
what you
term
are-
in politics.
What you're arguing now is like they have already stereotyped you. You believe they are the only one who can serve this government. There's this guy they kicked out of the country, and I miss him so much.
Miguna.
I remember when we went to voting, I told my brother, because me I vote in the rural area, you're going to vote in the city. Please vote in Miguna. Because if you look at Miguna was being fought by politicians, not the common Mwananchi. Because they knew the gospel he was preaching. If it gets to the Mwananchi's spine, this country will have a total change. Those are the kind of people we need. Radical people, we hate them, but they are the people we need. I look at my daughter. Where will my daughter be the next 30 years? In this kind of government?
Okay, James, so they should retire gracefully. We'll wait and see if that can happen.
They should. We are giving them pension, even they don't deserve it because they have already pocketed so much. We are supposed to let them go free. It was not a favor to serve us.
Yeah,
James.
they were doing their
It was
job.
a calling.
Yes.
It was a calling. It was not a favor. No, listen, my friend. Miguna says, it cannot be done, should not be in the mind of a visionary. Now these guys are running this country down. And I was, one day, I wish one day I'll meet President and I'll ask him only one question. Mr. President, how do you feel leading a very dirty country?
Good Lord. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you, James. Have a good one.
Bye, James.
James, thank you very much. You actually made Jerry uncomfortable there. The kind of question. Yego, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Egon. How are you?
Uko wapi leo?
I'm fine. Leo niko Tuma tu.
All right.
Niambie.
So I want to start with niseme with the current constitution. If the front runners of 2022 will still be the Moi, the Kanu Ovans, or the Moi Ovans, then we are not yet. There's no way we can run away from politicians being appointed as ministers. Because remember, this year after 2022, for example, we have used those governors who are serving 2 terms. They will be like, now we have retired from politics. The way Governor Ngilu and I don't know, and was it Peter Kenneth? Oh, no, not Peter Kenneth. When Uhuru and Ruto announced that now we have the politicians will be I and Uhuru, and Ngilu have just retired from politics. So we will have the same stories when it comes to 2022.
Yeah.
And remember, these people are now the people at the crown. They are the ones who will be
mobilizing,
financing, and mobilizing the campaigns at the crown. So there's no way you will
overlook them
off without rewarding them for
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diego. I had Robert from Ikolomani, but his call has dropped. We also wanted to call back Robert, and I was also seeing Solomon from Mombasa had also called in. Please call in. You've got about 3 minutes before we wind up this conversation.
Yeah, so you can see there's our political pundit caller, Yegun. It's basically the situation on the ground. If you understand the psychology of the voter, the collective psychology of the electorate, and how politics works and how mobilization and galvanization around certain candidates works, you'll understand that these are the people on the ground, the governors. They have got that influence. They understand the machinery. So they're very helpful for the presidential candidate. Now, in order for them to help or to select which presidential candidate they're going to help, what's going to happen is there'll be that promise of the reward of a cabinet position. Now, nobody wants to relinquish power that easily, so you can see why they will be fighting tooth and nail to remain relevant. Now, where do you go from being governor? It has to be cabinet. There's nothing higher than that.
Or home.
Yes.
Or go.
Or just
it's enough.
go home.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. You had an
came in here
opportunity in
knowing
the
the
ring,
deal.
and you knew what you were supposed to do. It's all right.
You
served,
could
thank
go
you.
home,
Go
but there'll
home.
be there's positions up for grabs, and it's your right,
Or
as
you
with
can
every
run for
Kenyan
Senate.
citizen.
run,
That
but
too
don't
is
expect
an
something to be
option.
put
Although
in
I
your
think
file, yeah.
governors feel that their position is higher than Senate, given
Actually, I
especially
think the best position that a former governor should go to is Senate. Because Senate is actually supposed to be the one oversighting how the devolution is actually being implemented.
But
That's
we've
the best place.
very quickly seen, as we saw in Meru with the guy Kiraito, moving from Senate to governor. Governor is the preferred position. Senate is, of course, very bureaucratic, and it's
Is the retirement home.
But governor is where the money is in terms of your running
And
budgets.
you've served
and
your 2 terms, and then now you go to the Senate, a retirement home where you're now sitting there and saying,
food for thought.
"Look,
Yep, the Senate
this is what you should do."
Yep, the Senate is definitely a
In fact,
consideration.
we have countries that ensure that former presidents become senators for life. So you're never out of the political limelight as such.
Which is good because you're bringing in your experience or your
That is why
experience
they have you there.
Another
serve
reward
from
scheme.
as a paragon
It
of
is a
wisdom.
reward scheme.
Yes.
Robert in Ikolomani. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the program. Let me contribute about it. Okay, let me ask you a question. What about if the governors continue performing? Will they be there forever?
Because they've performed well.
Forever.
The law is clear.
The law is clear. You can only serve 2 terms.
Yeah, I think the governors should be there for only 2 terms, so that they give young blood a position also to lead.
That's the current case.
Yeah.
Once they've served the 2 terms,
Very tricky. Most of them, when they have finished the 2 terms, they want to go to the upper position.
yeah. I think we didn't get.
Well,
the gist of what you said.
basically, he's saying if they're good, they should stay on or they should move on. If they're not good, and give others an opportunity. But of course, constitutionally, the limit of their terms is the 2 terms. And they have to get out. So maybe the constitution could change that, because why should you limit somebody like or somebody like Oparanya? Maybe his people want him to serve a further term. Why should we limit them in doing so? This can go against the ideals of democracy in terms of choice.
This thing of knowing that we can constantly keep thinking and tinkering with this constitution, but we're never.
It's a living document. We should be able to tinker with it.
Why not change our
and fine tune it?
thoughts?
But we tinkered with it. That's why we even limited the presidential terms at the beginning.
And we can go back and revisit that. We're
And
not handcuffed to the current provisions, and
It's
we
true.
shouldn't.
No,
be.
we are
It's
not.
true.
But we saw the harm.
Yes.
But it caused.
We saw the harm.
What led us to think this way? Every time you want to make a decision, to change your decision, start from what was the principle? What is it that motivated you to actually make that decision in the first place? If that has changed, fine, change your decision. If that hasn't changed, then look at what has made it be impossible for you to do what you wanted to do. with your
I think
decision.
we're very lucky that we can have referendums and revise our positions depending on.
Why are we lucky exactly?
Because can you imagine if we were handcuffed to certain provisions, and the environment is changing, people are changing, generations are coming in. Constitutions are supposed to, or as they say, man is made for the law. It's not law that is made for the man. We don't create a legal system and then try and have to operate within it. What we do is we create a legal system as we advance, so it grows organically, so as to support us as a society, as humanity, and so on. So if the Constitution or certain provisions of the Constitution are not working for us, then there's no harm in sort of fine-tuning it to ensure that it works for the citizenry. And this is why I'm saying we're very lucky that we're not, it's not set in stone. Yes, the Constitution
Actually,
is
No, Njeri, you do have a point. And one of the things we should consider is ensuring that former governors do not become cabinet ministers.
That's a way
But
out
should
as
we
well.
maybe then not put a time limit? Because why? Say
No,
somebody
no
like
time limit.
the constituents of Kivutha Kibwana, they're very happy with his performance.
Yes.
Why should he be forced out of leadership because of this
But
he's
provision? in
not
the-
being
Because he has
forced out.
served.
He has
being
he's
forced out,
two
and
terms.
maybe,
No.
and maybe,
But maybe
his
these people
service-
want him. What I'm saying is, where is the will of the people here?
Do they
maybe
want
they
him?
want him again.
Do they want him, or do they want a constant performance, even by someone else, to the likes of what he
But they
did?
can't be assured of that. Maybe with this guy, they have the assurance.
Well, they didn't even know before he came in that he
But
was
now
going
that
to do
he's
this.
come in, what
From
I'm saying
Eldoret.
is,
So
Let me
what
go
they're
to
saying is that
Eldoret.
they would like to bring somebody else in who would do the same thing, if not better.
Simon, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much.
What do you think?
I want to contribute to this debate this morning.
Please do.
And I believe if we have a pool of leaders to select from, we can choose from the governors to select our president who to vote for in future. Because if you just go looking for the same characters, like now we are thinking of Uhuru, Raila, Ruto, all those fellows. You see, we will remain. Just imagine if we will have another Jubilee for the next 10 years. I don't know where the country will be. The way we are dying in the villages. In fact, I'm sitting down. I don't know whether to go to work. I don't know whether to go to farming because I cannot now go to do my farm because I'm trying to imagine the amount of money I'm going to get from my maize. Masiwa ndio imeisha kabisa. So if we can select from for example, the governors.
For example, now Mandago now becomes president.
Yeah, those are the fellows we can select. Look at the whole world. People select old people who can only protect their wealth. Not the ones who are going to amass all the wealth of the nation. Like you can see the young fellows. They want to compete. They want to be like Moi. They want to be like Kenyatta. So by the time they get very rich to rule us, we will be so poor. You can just imagine. Let's just get Kivutha Kibwana, who is very old, trying to protect what he has.
Mandago?
Probably.
Mandago is too young.
Why Mandago will finish us completely.
Why will he finish you?
He's too young.
These are young fellows. They want to get rich. They want to own helicopters and everybody like Moya and the rest of the one. So let's get the old ones, and then from our ministers or the PSS, we can select from the parliament or those fellows whom we can see they are progressive in nature.
So we've got Kivutha. What are the options? So you've said age is crucial, so that they're older. You feel the older they are, the less they'll steal.
People are leading nations at the age of 70, not at the age of 45. Maybe Obama alone, but the rest of the world. Look at most of them; they are very old. Like if you choose just a young man like that one of North Korea, he will want to compete with America, and he will not relent. The end of the world will come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, for your contribution. We wish you a good day in Eldoret. The conversation continues. Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is Kenya's and the region's first and only 24-hour audio-visual channel. That means that you can actually log on to those platforms and watch us in the studio. Studios have got cameras, have got lights. You know, every day we come in and we've got to do our makeup and all. So just
do we?
Okay.
Don't you?
No, I've got no makeup on. Thank you. I've got a good face for radio. I have.
Well, yes. So apart from Jerry, who's got a good face for radio, the rest of us actually do. 26 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. Traffic.
All right, the stormwater drainage in Waiakere is causing quite a lot of drama this morning on the road. So there's traffic from the Udhiru, got it, flyover heading in and out of town. Unfortunately, that's causing some traffic. So if you're heading in that direction or coming from that direction, that's what the problem is. And right now, there is some drainage rescue going on. So hopefully that will sort out that issue soon. And that is why you are at a standstill. Okay, what else can we talk about now? Mombasa Road, not so much of an issue. The Thika Superhighway is giving us what we expect it to on a Monday morning. You'll get out soon enough, alive, we hope. All right, heading into the CBD from Jogo Road also is not so much of a problem. Traffic is bumper to bumper, but it is moving, whichever way you want to look at it. Coming off Ngong Road and Langata Road.
Thank you.
Not so bad. Not so bad getting into the city centre.
No.
Give us a call if you see something that we should know or an alternate route that you find. 0719-012-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Spice FM is also in Malindi on 97.6, in Nyeri 90.9, in Nakuru 96.0, Kisumu 102.5, Mombasa 87.9, Nairobi 94.4. And of course, like I said earlier, we keep streaming. We're live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, on YouTube, Spice FM KE. Follow our conversation via the hashtag Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Now, let's talk about something that happened over the weekend. So the Catholic bishops had a meeting, and then they emerged and they did what they declared as the Subukia Declaration. And this Subukia Declaration, they looked at what has been happening in terms of politics and church recently, where politicians have been going to church with bags and gunias and sacks of money and, you know, giving donations here and there, of course, being given a platform in the church to speak and talk about their political agenda and everything. And then they also give money because the church requires one or two or three things that, you know, it has a project that it's running. And the Catholic bishop said, no. We have had concern about movement of illicit money through our churches, and we want to curb that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to say no more cash donations in church. We cannot necessarily ban Harambes, but it's okay. If you want to contribute, take it through the formal system. Give us a check, deposit it in our bank account, or you can send via M-Pesa. That way, we have traceability of the money. And this is something that people have actually been talking about. A couple of months earlier, the Anglican Church Archbishop, Bishop Ole Sapit, had done the same thing. He had said, let's stop politicizing these issues. When you come into a church, don't come in with all this money. We are being used as conduits for corruption. And this is a conversation I want us to have this morning. And before we actually get into it, let's hear what the Catholic bishops were saying.
They remove their shoes in mourning of our society for the loss of commitment to God's laws and for the exploitation and abuse of the poor. Sold for a penny, for the many deaths caused by corruption.
We shall keep a record of any gifts to a religious leader exceeding Kenya shillings 50,000. All gifts should be accompanied by a letter or acknowledged by a letter. Our churches will not be used as political platforms or for any other motive. Political speeches shall not be allowed at all within the liturgical celebrations. We shall therefore not allow any address within the church of any non-liturgical character. All such addresses that may be opportune to make will be made outside of the church with due dignity. We shall keep a record of any gifts to a religious leader exceeding Kenya shillings 50,000. All gifts should be accompanied by a letter or acknowledgement
Well, basically what the Catholic bishops are doing, they're addressing something that has actually crept into churches. And we've discussed it many times. It's actually a conversation in the society. Politicians, just like the creeper weed, have actually now crept into church, and they've gone to the pulpit, and they've used their influence in terms of money to buy a spot where they speak to the congregation in church. And this is what the Catholic Church is saying, no. We have seen. Remember, the latest one that was publicized was in a Catholic church in Muranga, where we had the debacle between Dende Nyoro and Minor Commander and their brigades. And this was inside church, where they were trying to tussle over the microphone, who's going to speak, who has the right to speak in this church, who has brought in whom to come and contribute to this church. What I'm saying is, I think we may sit back and hit back at the church, but this time they're doing something about it.
This time, the Catholic Church is doing something about it.
Yes, the Catholic Church
Well,
and
really,
the
it's
Anglican
just
Church as well.
stipulating that it will still be accepting money. It's just that it's going to have to be
Streamline
more
that.
streamline that.
Yes.
So it could be a call to give them money as opposed to giving the other churches money. I'm not.
It's not really saying they're going to stop. It's not saying stop giving us money. It's just saying stop giving it to us in this way.
And if it exceeds,
If it
a
exceeds
certain amount, then
give it to us by check. You
As
can
a-
still give us. You can still give us the
Yes,
money. However,
with good reason.
the
If
mode.
you give it by
And
check,
no.
it means it's already in your account and counted for.
Yes.
And the law has allowed for it to be there because otherwise they wouldn't allow you to even expend it. So they're saying they want to work within the law.
It's not illicit money anymore.
Yes.
And also what they're saying is, sometimes politicians go and they say, no, this one I'm giving as a gift. So we had a meeting with Pastor so-and-so yesterday, or with Reverend so-and-so, and I gave him a gift. And we say, no, as long as you're a leader in this church, if you receive a gift from anybody, you shall also declare that gift. Just like it happens in government.
Do you know what is even worse? The money part of the participation of the political class in a church setting is not even what is harmful. It's the utterances.
It's what they do.
It's what
Once
they
they've
do
bought
and
their
then what
space.
they
No,
say.
the money is not as innocuous as you think. You can imagine the money will buy you influence.
I
and
didn't say
people,
it was innocuous.
You said it's not harmful.
Not us.
Hey.
I think the money part is actually more dangerous. The utterances have a short shelf life in terms of people's memories and so on. People move on very quickly. We don't remember what was said or what was being debated at Dindi Nyoro's and the Commander incident.
But we remember what they did.
We forget, but that will pass. But what is long-lasting...
And you think the money will not pass?
No, what is long-lasting is the church's views are bought, or the church's position on certain things. They're bought by the politicians, and they will perpetuate this for years to come. What they tell the congregation. Remember, the congregation is very malleable in terms of their opinions. They're in church. It's a place of God. The authority that the church leaders have over the people is huge. And this is what politicians look to buy. They're not giving money for that day to be seen to be doing it, because Kenyans are fickle. They will forget. There will be another politician who comes and gives probably less money, but people remember him more because he was more recent. So what they're buying is the influence, the potential for the church to pass their message on throughout the year. So it's very dangerous, the church actually receiving money from politicians, because they can then be compromised in their position on very important policy or issues within
you
the
don't
country.
seem to think very highly of the cognitive capacity of the so-called common man, do you?
No.
Which tells you she's not common.
No. Which tells you she shouldn't go into politics.
No, I have a point there. You know that the church is very influential and their statements count for a lot. So if they're receiving money from politicians in whatever way, shape or form, whether it's by check, whether it's by credit card, and even if it's traceable, What can then happen is the politician buys those leaders, and those leaders are church leaders. They can then go and propagate the politician's agenda. It's a very dangerous. Nobody should be able to give money to
This
the
is where
church
the line
other than the
goes grey,
congregation.
however, this is so. I'm a member of this church. I have been a member of this church even before I went into politics. So I've gone into politics, and even before I went into politics, I used to contribute. We have, a construction happening. We have a project that we are raising money for, and I used to participate in it. Now that I've gone into politics, should I not be able to participate in it?
Well,
if
you
we
can.
just formalize it, I can deposit the money in the bank or through the banking system. Formalize how I'm contributing.
Maybe anonymously then maybe we create a platform where you give anonymously so that the church doesn't know where the money has come from, and therefore they have no responsibility to you as an individual and in turn a politician to push your agenda. If it's money you genuinely want to give to the church, give it anonymously.
Long before we had this advent of individuals giving huge amounts to churches, we had politicians going into churches and using the church platform to further their political agenda. The money is a late entrant into this particular game. And part of the reason why the population love politics. They like political utterances. To understand this is to go to a funeral where there are politicians. People actually want to listen to politicians.
They want entertainment.
Yes,
it's a sad day. It's a sad day. We just want a moment to laugh.
The money came in to propel whatever whatever their stance was before. It just made it go further.
It's just that, and the politicians understood that they will be tolerated in church.
Why are we accepting with such ease this
It is
idea
not
of
accepting-
giving the church
It
money?
It is not accepting.
You're talking about it so normally.
But I'm talking about something which is normal. And
What's
I'm trying
normal?
to
Why is it so
And I'm
normal?
trying to give you the history. If you hadn't interrupted me, I would actually have gotten there.
Sorry, my apologies.
No, don't apologize. I told you have permission
It
to
wouldn't be a
interrupt me.
show without my interruption, CT. You know
Not
that.
quite, really. Yes. You see, you are talking about the public and what they like. Part of the reason why the politician gained that foothold is because at times when the church was expected by virtue of their work and what they represent to make a stand, they didn't. And they didn't for a long time. What you're seeing now is like they've reinvented themselves. They are evolving back to what they should have been in the first place.
It's like you say, you can't call on it later in the game. Like they say, you not feed chop, clean your mouth. Now you can't say another person get food for your mouth. You've
Repeat
already
that.
eaten.
Repeat
Then
that. You know,
clean
feed
your-
chop.
You not feed chop, clean your mouth. Now you can't look say another person get food for your face. You can't eat, clean your mouth, and then now come around later and say that I've seen a fault there. You've already accepted. You've already you're already in a position of acceptance over a long period of time. So where does it stop? You then now cannot come and change the rules as we go along, because essentially you're not stopping corruption or hoping to stop corruption by what you're doing. You're not.
I'm retaking control. I've realized that my control
But you're
has
still
actually
taking
been
the
taken
money.
away.
You're still taking the money. You've digested. You're still taking the money.
No,
but you're
there's-
now saying let it come around about in a different form.
No. There's several things that are happening here in this particular declaration. If you just go by the Subukia Declaration alone, number one, they're acknowledging that politicians have been coming and buying their way into the pulpit.
They've only realized it now.
Let's
I mean, seriously.
Yes, let's even assume that they've only realized it now, okay? So they've only realized it now. They've realized that the politicians are using what they're saying is their money influence. So, you guys have a, what is this church doing? This church has Harambee, so let me go in there. So I come in here, and because I'm going to pledge 200,000 shillings when everybody else can only pledge 50 bob, I'm actually buying a way into addressing these people. And that is wrong. So they have realized that their authority in church has been undermined by this creeper. And I'm calling it a creeper that has crept into church and started taking over this. And they're saying no more of this. And the way to control this is by saying, if you want to contribute, you come into church as a member, as a congregant, just like everybody else. And if you want to contribute, yes, we can contribute if you have a project, because you're a member.
We're not refusing your money.
You're one
That's
of
what
us.
they're saying.
Still bring the money, no problem.
No. I'm not refusing your money as a member of this church. If you want to contribute, yes. But then, of course, then there's also their limits that you
The
shall follow.
Catholic Church is one of the richest institutions in the world.
You keep saying that.
It
It's
is
true.
It is the Vatican. What contributions do they need, and why do they need these contributions? I remember I'm Catholic by birth, in terms of I was born into a Catholic family.
There's your answer, CT.
I was born into a
what
Catholic
you have been looking for.
Things may have changed.
And just like we said, in citizenship, you cannot renounce it if it's by birth.
Things may have changed. I was born into a Catholic family, and I remember going to church, and we had sadaka, and you gave 5 shillings, 10 shillings, 20 shillings.
Yes. During what period of time was that?
That time,
This would have
5
been-
bubbles.
It was somewhere in the past, probably in the previous century, correct?
It wasn't the previous century. I'm not that old, City.
You were
Don't
born-
age me
You
unnecessarily.
were born in the previous century.
I think most people listening to the show were.
10 shillings. No, this century is 19 years old, for heaven's sake.
Only.
Yes. So if
No,
you're
what
born
I'm
in-
saying is the drive to collect funds wasn't as intense and deliberate as it is at the moment. You did not have anybody stand up and pledge the figures we see today. The Catholic Church was not about that. But I do appreciate the Catholic Church, don't get me wrong. They do the most in society in terms of building schools, hospitals. I don't see this with any other religious or Christian
Well, it
foundation.
does happen. PCA, I see.
Okay, the
Depends on
Catholic
where
has
you
more,
go.
put it that way. The Catholic is more involved. There's hospitals, St. Mary's
No.
and Gilgil and so on.
Why don't you just say that the
Visibility.
Catholic has done a lot?
It has. It's
If
done
you
a lot
say
more.
they've done the most, we're going to ask you for statistics, which you will
We
not
can
have.
look at the statistics. Which church has a hospital in this country?
What? Very many.
A hospital as big as
Very many.
Have you heard of Kijabe
Yeah,
Mission
yeah,
Hospital?
yes. No, you're
It's an
right.
AIC hospital.
All
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right.
So let's go on. So
But
you were
the
saying.
point is here, there's the drive to get money from the Catholic Church is baffling because the church has a lot of money. Secondly, I don't think that this is stringent enough a statement or a declaration. What they should be saying is that we're going to be a lot more open and transparent. Our accounts are going to be visible to anybody. And if you're giving us money, we want to know why, what the money is for. Basically, you need to be a little bit more intricate than just saying we're not going to accept money in certain forms.
And you imagine they hadn't thought of what you're saying.
Well, if they've made this declaration, make it public. When you're speaking about it to the media, let everybody know what it's about. You know, it's called the Samburu Declaration.
No.
Subukia.
Subukia.
Sorry.
they have a Catholic
Same
church in
difference,
Subukia
no?
as well.
Okay.
It's a Subukia Declaration.
Subukia
in
Declaration.
In the Subukia Declaration, actually, this is just a clip of what they said. Among the other things that they were saying is that we want to have more openness.
Right,
in terms
absolutely,
Of,
okay.
In terms of who is contributing and why you're contributing. The reason why they're saying that any contribution directly to a church leader must be accompanied by a note is for that. You're saying, I'm actually doing this. I'm saying, thank you very much to Reverend so-and-so, Reverend Ndu, because you really came to my family and you helped my family. As a person, as a human being, I want to appreciate you.
So have
Ndu.
they also then put the reins on themselves as the church to then stop this operation of inviting chief guests, who in a lot of
That's
cases
exactly
are
what
actually
they've done.
politicians?
That's exactly what they've done.
I'm asking. So now have they actually said, in this case, we're not going to invite them as chief guests to come and raise money or, propel the funds drive, as it were?
That's what they've done.
Why are churches always collecting money? Can we ask ourselves this question? Why are we? I mean, how many
It's not just-
foundations
it's-
and buildings
it's-
do we
it's
need?
not- it's
Why
not
are
just
churches
churches,
always?
no.
Why have we normalized this
What are these
notion?
unending projects?
No, it's not unending. Please understand, if the population of a country grows, so does the population in the church. Number one. Number two, since we're going in order of numbers.
You've jumped into the defense of the church quite quickly there, but let's hear the second one.
It is not a defense. I'm merely stating the facts.
You're explaining.
The way in which businesses conduct whatever business they have is by selling things to willing people who are willing to buy it. The church has a principle of maintaining its standard by asking people to tithe. It's called giving. So giving is the way by which churches receive money to do the things that they do on a daily basis, the recurrent things. It's not
Well,
even
maybe they
complicated.
need to change their strategy and actually go into business. You see a lot of charities which are philanthropic. They've actually started revenue generating activities,
They have
and maybe
schools.
the church can also
have
do
schools.
this.
They have
Tithing
schools
is
and
outdated.
guest houses and things
They
like
have
this. It
schools and
happens.
guest houses. They do.
There's also the other aspect, Jerry. What is it in legal terms? Is it tax evasion or tax avoidance?
Which is
The
which?
church is not does not pay.
It's avoiding. Avoiding is legal. It's a loophole
Yeah,
which
so
they can use.
the church
so it's
does
a
not
charity
pay.
and it doesn't pay taxes.
The church does not pay
Because it's not
taxes.
profit making.
Because it's not profit.
Well,
making.
maybe it
So
needs to
somebody who's
start
actually
looking at
contributing to
profit-making
this is also-
activities.
You see, what you are arguing about is a tenet that is at the very foundation of how the church receives money and how it is actually structured to grow and to maintain itself. It's through people willingly giving. Yes, willingly. That's why it's called tithing. You're not told you must give this amount. No.
Yes, but
No,
there's a
you're
lot of
told. In
undue
tithe, you're told.
influence.
No.
10%.
The church doesn't tell you. I was going to say the Bible.
The
is
Bible
what is
tells
what
you.
instructs you.
Mm.
That's
Here
what
we
I was
go.
going to say.
Right.
Yes.
But you
Okay.
find that
Yes.
churches use very sort of uncouth or unethical techniques to get as much money as they can out of their congregation. Now that should also be. Remember,
It's
Of course it should
voluntary.
be. No, no.
how voluntary is something where there's been undue influence? And remember, you're also the situational.
Oh, it's
aspect of
voluntary
it.
from the very beginning to the end.
It's
There's a
not when you've been coerced and
there's a
undue
proliferation of all these other churches. You
influence.
see, when you have the mainstream churches that had the structures, national structures and governance structures that are laid down. Like now we're talking about the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Presbyterian Church, AIC. Such churches have those kind of structures. The other churches that have come in, what do we call them?
They
Evangelical churches.
Yeah, prosperity
Yes.
preaching and so on.
Those
They're
ones. And
preying
they're the
quite
ones that actually
literally
take
on
up-
the vulnerable and the poorest in society. They're making people pay for their hopes. It's completely wrong. There's a lot of undue influence. There's a lot of manipulation, subliminal messages. All sorts of techniques are being used to get people to part with their money. Where is the regulation on that? But you see, the government leaves that be because they need the people to get their hope from the church where they're failing the people. Also, they need those platforms to later, propel their agendas. So it's all a very murky. It's a muddy sea.
You
and
are
it's-
aware that in this country, very many of the people you think or believe are in policy making are also members of churches.
They are.
I don't dispute that.
And many church leaders have now got into a position where because they want to be influential in their churches, they want to have more people coming to their church because there's also competition in church. There's increased competition. So if you've got affiliation to politicians, so and so, who keeps coming to your church, and he speaks in your church and he donates money in your church, you're actually also propelling yourself as, I'm the guy who can bring
What
in
I'd
so
be
and so.
interested in is what the Muslim setup is. If there's any Muslims out there who can tell us how it works with regards to politicians and receiving money for the mosque. Do Muslims solicit for funds within the mosque as the church leaders do?
Theirs is it's almost biblical, if I may use the term, in the sense that the Bible actually is very strict and very clear about declaring what you give.
The Quran, you mean?
He's quoting the Bible
I
in this
do
case.
know the
But we're
difference
talking
between the
about
two.
theirs.
Yes, I'm going there.
Okay.
I'm
Sorry.
going there.
My bad.
The Bible says the left hand should not know what the right hand is giving. Muslims understand that giving by its very nature is powerful when it's private and when it's confidential. So they give. And they give and they give and
Quite extensively.
they really
They
genuinely. When I say give, I mean it. They give.
Is it done anonymously so they're not giving to buy influence?
They
into the
don't
mosque?
show off about it.
Right.
Shall I open the phone lines?
Yes.
0719012600. From Kisumu, we have Brian. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Very well, very well. And everybody else, Ndu, Jerry?
We're good.
Good, thank you.
Everybody's
We're
good.
very well, thank you, sir. And how are you today?
The professor of politics, Sweetie, how are you today?
I am very well, and thank you for the accolade, and thank you very much.
Brian,
thank you.
what's your
Yes.
thought on this?
Now, listen, I don't know what City makes today about this. The talk is very good, but listen out, City. Imagine, it only took us the central bank to start noticing that there's a lot of fake currencies and people holding large sums of money for them to come up and say, now do this, return all the old notes and bring them back to the central bank. But now listen again. How do we know or not know that this is just a gimmick, a setup by these guys who've been holding notes to use the churches and say, now we're not dishing out any more notes because they've been arrested back to their owners. Yeah, why is it City expected you to say that? I was really waiting for your guess on that.
My brother, I am only human and I have my limitations. But thank you for pointing out that very important limitation.
Yes. Coming back to maybe what Njoki is talking about.
Jerry.
Jerry, sorry.
Yes.
Over the years,
In 30 seconds, Brian.
Over the years, we've been contributing in church. And nobody really knows how these things are collected because they keep telling us it's 10%. They tell us you're calling it tithe. It's supposed to be out of the heart. But they're giving us a few. They're telling us 10%. 10% of your earnings. And in fact, that's what is making people run away. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Brian. Well, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We're discussing the Subukia Declaration by the Catholic Church, and also just looking at the church in general and politicians going into church to make contributions, to make donations, and speaking at the pulpit, where they've basically turned churches into political rallies. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is a Situation Room.
Spice up your life.
Okay, here's a tongue twister for me this morning. Rui on the super highway. There's been an accident this morning, and now all the borders are on the road, and they've started blocking the road with boulders. So if you're wondering what's going on and why there's heightened traffic, it's because of that. And until the boulders are removed or until the police come on the scene, the traffic is going to continue while they're trying to get the accident taken care of. All right, Ngong Road, we still have an issue this morning, roundabout the Prestige, with incoming and outgoing traffic. Hopefully will lead us out towards the City Mortuary roundabout and into the CBD, and that's 9 o'clock traffic for you. Waiaki Way traffic, it's because of the drainage or non-drainage in this aspect, and we're not moving. Hopefully we will get there as the drainage operation is taking place right now. Mombasa Road is flowing. Traffic is almost a bumper to bumper situation, but it's actually moving. Everything else looks pretty good this morning for a Monday. If you see anything out of the ordinary or something that we should know about to warn other people about, give us a call. Number is 0719-012-600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. 2 minutes after 9 o'clock, we are broadcasting live from Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi, and of course we're live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke, on Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on YouTube, and our hashtag on Twitter is Spice FM KE. Like us. Our hashtag on Twitter is Situation Room. Our Twitter handle is Spice FM KE.
We're just everywhere, aren't we?
We are all over it.
What's happened today?
Like white on rice.
Oh, should I ask what happened yesterday?
It's a Monday.
Now, we're talking about, of course, the church receiving money and the measures it's looking to put into place with this Subukia Declaration, whereby the Catholic Church, of course, has stated that anything over 50,000 shillings must be given in a check and has to be accompanied by a note stating what it's for or from. Is that what they've said?
Yes.
Okay. Now, my issue is, and what we should really be questioning is, should the church be accepting money that has been obtained in an ungodly way? So should they go further and actually explore and investigate where this money has come from? Because with politicians, and I'm making a huge assumption here, but it's pretty well informed in terms of experience as a Kenyan individual. In terms of politicians, this money might not be coming from the cleanest of sources. So there's that I would want us to discuss. I think that's the direction that the church or the Catholic Church, when they made this declaration, that's what they should have focused on. Where is this money coming from? And then, of course, we talk about, the tithing and that it's important. It's prescribed by the Bible. But tithing is only 10% of your salary. What they're doing here is offerings, which is more than your 10%. Now,
or less.
Well,
more,
thank you.
more,
Okay,
more.
I want to thank Jerry for wading into this conversation at that level.
But I think most
agnostic that she is.
I'm very agnostic.
Lapsed Catholic that she is.
No, I'm not a lapsed Catholic. I'm a reformed or
Catholic
Catholic
by
you know
birth.
what the Reformation
Renounced
was, right?
What that very
let-
Bible
let-
advocates for is not just tithes, but there's the element of offerings that are
But
also
most
allowed.
importantly, let's look at what the Catholic Church should have done within that declaration. And it's to look at where this money is coming from, the money that they're receiving. Should the church be receiving money? I mean, there's debates about it, from gambling, from prostitution, and so on. Should the church be willing to receive that money? Now, if we look at where most politicians get their money, it's questionable. And if the church was
prostitution and
serious,
gambling.
no, hold on. If the church was serious about putting a cap on the unethical aspect of receiving money, what they should be doing is refusing to get money or to receive money that has been obtained in an ungodly way. That's what we should
And how would you determine this? How would you determine
money?
this?
Well, you've got to put a lot of measures in place in
Like?
terms of people saying where they've gotten their money from. We
And they're
know,
going
for
to tell
instance,
you, of
we know how much an MP earns. So if an MP is earning, let's say 800,000, I'm not saying that's the figure, but let's say 800,000, they shouldn't be tithing any more than 80,000. Where are you getting your money from?
The church also is a member.
I mean, that's a very
The
simplistic
10%
approach. What
that-
I'm saying,
no,
it's
the
not
church
a
is-
lifestyle audit. Maybe the
True.
church should do the lifestyle
The church
audit
is a
on those
member of the
willing to
community.
comply.
And we all know, I mean, people in our community, we know who they are, we know what they do for a living. So basically what you're saying is, so and so, we know you run clubs, you run bars, you run a prostitution ring, you're not welcome into this church. So even when we
Don't
have
give
a
us your
Harambe,
money.
please.
No, you're welcome to the church because you can go there for
Well, yes,
redemption.
yes.
But should the church accept money from your activities? They are ungodly. Now we should do the same with politicians. Where are you getting your money from? Is it from corruption? And if so, we're not going to accept it. That is the position the church should take. So this is a very light and very sort of, they're brushing things under the carpet by them saying what we're going to do in order to aid with this acceptance
just
of money
take a
and
check,
corruption.
but not cash.
So long as you write a note, what does the note have to state? I mean, that's neither here nor
The
there.
reason.
Good
The
luck.
reason for giving the money?
Good luck with that.
Well, that's
thinking,
very
Jerry.
easy. You just say, well, it's for the foundation. A church is always up to something in Kenya. It's always
Jerry,
building something. It's always collecting money.
Jerry,
But my point is, if the Catholic Church was serious about making sure that they're not involved in corruption and they're ethical in terms of
They should go
the
farther and
donations,
deeper.
absolutely, they should be carrying out the equivalent of a lifestyle audit on anybody.
On all members.
No, anybody they're accepting cash from. Cash that is so you say this 50,000 we're only accepting in checks. Well, also go further and find out where that 50,000 came from, because you should not be accepting money that has been obtained in an ungodly way, corruption of which is one.
0719 012 600. 0719 012 600. How should the church ensure that it's actually fighting corruption to the fullest? This particular declaration is actually aimed at curbing that corruption within church. Then Jerry is saying they should go further and actually say, let's interrogate where your donation is actually coming from. What's the source of this money that you've brought to us before we accept it? Even before we accept the banking slip.
Absolutely.
We can return it to you and say,
I mean, the banks are trying to do that. If you want to withdraw or put in, I think bank more than $1 million shillings now, you have to say where you got the money from.
Yes.
I mean, they're not that rigorous in terms of how they then investigate it. You put a land sale and you're fine to deposit $1 million. But the churches are not asking this very question. Where did you get your money from? We will accept it. Just if it's more than 50,000, give it to us by check. I'm sorry, that does nothing in terms of fighting the war on corruption.
In any way.
Yeah.
It doesn't curb it in any way. It
they've
doesn't
also opened,
deter anyone from.
They've opened corruption desks at church, so you can come and report. If I suspect that Jerry, who has contributed some money, actually has brought in this money from some bad source, I report it.
Who's going to
And
do
then
that?
what?
If I come and give you money and you want the money, are you going to go and report me that? And do you have evidence? What are you reporting exactly? Your suspicions, your hunches?
Yes, as a member of the society,
Yeah.
I'm only coming to report.
Well,
because
we
I'm
can all
suspicious of
report
this.
So then what
suspicions and
happens? Do
hunches.
they
That's a
And now the
implement
church takes it
What
over from
happens?
there.
They implement a policing mechanism. They take it to whom? On what grounds?
They start
What
investigating
happens?
because you're a member of the church, and they have got they investigate that. I've got Yego. Good morning, Yego.
Good morning.
Say my maneno.
Yego, tell me, is your name Yegon or
Or
Yego?
Yego.
Yegon.
There's an N.
There's
I thought so.
There's an N.
And there's
Okay,
an N.
Yegon.
Okay.
Ndu.
Yeah.
I understand.
Now, I think the Subukia declaration is hypocritical. because we are making self-judgment against Allah. We are judging, and yet it's Allah who judges.
Mm.
So we have seen these things happening, and it doesn't. For example, let me use, for example, a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
You will never find an Arambe in a diocese or the higher rank. I don't know whether they go regional or BCC what.
It's diocese actually
Mostly-
pretty high.
yes.
Archdiocese from there.
Yes. So most of the Arambes happen at the local grassroots because those members of the judge, I think they have something called judge council, have the activities and the financial of the year. Most of the judges have something which is called quota.
Yes.
Quarter of a year, because I've been attending these Arambes. So the diocese allocates a certain judge some amount of money. When the church members, due to the economy of the village or the area or the ward, when they cannot meet the target, that is when they will reach out, maybe to an MCA, an MB,
to do a harambe,
to do an Arambe, so that they can finance the same quarter which they normally channel the money up to. I think up to the
highest
deacon or what? Yes, the highest office. So I don't know why they see this money as illegal, and yet the person employed maybe has business. For example, a politician has business, he has the salary and other dealings. So when you revoke these things, actually they're undermining the local community or the participants of the judge, because even them want to see if the judge has instruments. They have to build a good judge.
But Yegon, you know what they're doing is they're saying it's okay, contribute, but let's formalize this relationship that we have. Don't come into church with cash, with bundles of cash that you're removing from socks, because we've seen this happening with politicians. You know, they remove from socks, they remove from jackets. It's bundles of cash. Why don't you just go and deposit that money in the bank and come with a banking slip and say, this is how much I've actually contributed to this?
But now, most of for you to deposit a bank check to a judge, then before inviting you, they should have told you that. But now you are invited. But these politicians are invited. They don't attend a judge or an Arambe without an invitation.
And they're invited because they help actually raise more funds, isn't it, for the church?
Yes, that is the main objective.
So it's a double-edged sword.
When you tell a person that you should not contribute more than 50,000, and there is another judge whom they will welcome them to contribute above that, because now we have Anglicans, we have Pentecostals, and when the Catholic says no, now
the Catholic is not saying no. What they're saying is that if you're going to give us more than 50,000, it has to be in the form of a check. But let me ask you, Yegon, you're Muslim, right?
Yes.
What is the ethos there in terms of receiving money from community members? How do you go about it? Is it an activity that happens in the mosque, or is it advertised? Are you pushed to give money?
You know, first of all, we don't have offerings in the mosque, unlike Christians, because we believe that what you do, the good things you do, even telling somebody that you are stepping on a stone or or separating people in fights. You are doing an offering, so we don't have offerings. Okay. When it comes to building our mosques, we have business people, and you will find a prominent business person saying that in a certain village, I'm going to build a mosque because these people have come to me. Other mosques are being funded all the way from Mecca.
From other countries, yes. How about politicians? Do politicians also contribute?
Contribute, but that's why we normally do these things in hotels. We don't do it in the mosque.
Okay.
You will hear that we have a catering, you see. But now the setup of Islam and Christian is different, because you find that when a politician enters a mosque, atuna ile or high table or what. That is where you
that is where you belong.
Yes, and like now, I've seen most in Christian judges, the top seats
Yeah, they reserved for the
amongst
politicians.
politicians. Yes. So that's the difference.
So also, you don't have politicians addressing gatherings in mosques.
No. That is the work of an imam.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
okay. Interesting.
Thank you, Egon.
I was just going to say, with tithing, what's interesting, I mean, or offerings, whatever we want to call them, politicians are actually bastardizing the whole notion of it, in that even God himself, in I don't want to quote the Bible because I might be accused of being a Christian, but Matthew chapter 6 verse 4, where it says that thine alms be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. So the idea of giving openly is also discouraged in the Bible, so that your merciful deeds may be in secret, then your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So why is it that we're looking for this external validation very easily, and instant gratification
As
by giving
politicians.
money openly? And maybe this is something else the church needs to look at, and this is why I talk about giving anonymously. The church could find itself in a win-win situation by stating that money has to be given anonymously. That way you don't know who's giving to the church, and that will remove the intention of the politician giving to the church in order to win influence. You deposit money in an account, we don't want to know where it's from, who it's from. That way there's no undue influence, or there's no the propensity to then influence the church and what it says and what it does and what position it takes on certain policies is erased, because there's no individual that's given. So the church can still receive money, but do it anonymously. But we're ignoring or overlooking this point that I made earlier, whereby the church should also look at how that money was obtained. And this is where it would come in a bid to fight corruption. If the government was serious about fighting corruption, this is where it would deploy the church,
Its
so
officers,
to speak.
yes.
Absolutely, where the church questions, where did you get this money when you're donating?
Indeed. Your contribution is welcome. 0719
Not money,
0719 600. M-Pesa lines are open, and you don't need to tell us who you are. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's 9:15.
.0 Spice FM, Nakuru.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
18 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. In the room, I'm Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, CT Muga. We are broadcasting live from Nairobi across the country. We are in Malindi, Nyeri, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa. We're also worldwide, www.spicefm.co.ke, and also on Facebook, Spice FM KE. That means you can actually watch us wherever you are. Tag us on Twitter. Our hashtag is Situation Room. Let's talk about, let's cross the borders a bit, shall we?
across the borders, but still stay within the borders of Kenya. And if we look at corruption and how it has really taken us by storm as a country, we've had calls from different facets, different players in the global arena of, stopping corruption is going to be the way towards, great development in the country. We've heard these calls, clarion calls, really come to Kenya. We've heard these calls to come to many countries in sub-Saharan Africa or countries that would be seen to be developing economies. Most recently, there has been a call by the United States of stopping corruption in different countries around sub-Saharan Africa, and even so, the resident ambassador from the United States in Kenya, Ambassador Carl McCarter, has called to stop the thievery, to stop the corruption that is happening in this country. And it's interesting because this is against the backdrop of the blatant corruption that is going on in the United States and coming also from the hands of the President of the United States himself. He is right now in the hot seat because there have been calls for his impeachment, and those processes have actually begun. And so I'm asking the question this morning, or putting it forth, that really we've gotten to a place whereby the almighty United States definitely is not in a position to be asking for clean ways of doing government when their hands, in this case, are dirty as well.
So you're saying that America has lost the moral authority?
Completely, globally.
To tell us anything.
Anything.
Did it have the moral authority at any point, and when?
I think that at some point they packaged themselves as, they call themselves the free world. And that insinuates that the rest of us are somewhat chained to whatever it is that we might be chained to. But of course, it lost its moral authority a while ago. I think the war in Iraq was the beginning of the end for America in terms of them actually coming out and talking about things like human rights, because they used to hold a lot of countries hostage with such assertions, isn't it? Your human rights record will determine even the rates of the loans and the aid that we give you and so on. But of course, I think with Iraq, and then we've seen Guantanamo, they've lost, you're completely right, Eric, in terms of a moral standing, they've lost that. Even with democracy, they can't say very much about free and fair elections with what we've seen going on in their country and the controversy that's surrounded Trump's election. So, and also I suppose it's becoming a more informed world. There's a lot of more sources for information. So America can't run its narrative the way it did in the 90s and early 2000s, or, prior to that, where they could package themselves and sell themselves globally in any which way. What we're able to see now is everybody report, and, with the internet and so on, we have a lot more access to information, and we can see exactly what's going on, or a lot more that's going on than we did previously. And America just doesn't have the respect that it did a while ago.
It's interesting to see this because we can look at America and look at it from a global point, but we also have the citizens of America now finally speaking up and making it very clear that the Stars and Stripes is not something that they're putting all their moral authority on anymore, because they're also saying, here we are, we don't even maintain our own sovereignty as a country anymore. And they said, here we are with our president seeking re-election in 2020, at the same time is calling on foreign governments to validate his position as a candidate against that of Joe Biden, for example. And they're saying, where is our sovereignty? We have the whole phone call debacle with, text messages of different things having happened, and calls from Trump himself. Of course, these are still in the allegation stage, and the proceedings for impeachment have only just begun with this week, probably some more milestones to be reached. However, are we going to, as countries, whether we call ourselves emerging economies or
third world countries,
developing third world,
are we going to continue taking this moral direction from countries, or in this case from a country that has no moral direction of its own? Who is leading us? It's definitely pot calling kettle black. It's definitely Boulder versus Speck, blind leading the blind. Who's leading whom? And we should finally be able to say, we will form our own direction. We will form the way in which we feel it should be. We've taken direction from these guys all the time because they were powerful in terms of how they doled out the dollar. But now we see it's very clear, and because we have access to all of this information, we know for a fact that they're not as angelic as they always profess themselves to be. So I think it's about we've gotten to the point whereby we know that guess what? Other people sin too.
At what point were they angelic, really?
Of the perception of
I'm actually
angelic.
struggling with that because
They
I'm
were
wondering-
able to sugarcoat themselves and
They just
made
packaged themselves. They fed us from some side of media that made us feel that they were this.
The
But then
biggest
we-
export was culture. Do you know that? All of us were, well, I mean, we speak English because of colonialism, but in terms of what we were turning to, whether it's
Wearing
their
jeans and
foods,
eating burgers.
McDonald's, absolutely,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
And then
that
we've seen
sort
now
of
the
thing. Their
emergence of the
music.
other media that's showing us the other side of America, right?
Mm.
So we are seeing all these other sides of America, and we're thinking, well, really, what are you telling us? In fact, we should issue travel advisories on these countries as well. We should say, stop going there. If you can't hold a free and fair election in your own country, if your own election system can actually be manipulated by another country, then what? You don't know anything about running an election
There's another
or managing an election.
There's another angle to this, and this sort of persistent rhetoric of domestic corruption in African countries and the statements that are issued on a regular basis from the international community and how corrupt we are as Africans. Conspiratorial, but I do agree with what I'm about to say, in that you'll find the international community will try and divert our attention to domestic corruption, divert it from the illicit financial flows that we see coming out of Africa. Africa loses billions to illicit financial flows, and by this I mean tax avoidance by multinationals within Africa through different channels and different loopholes within the tax laws and systems, whereby Africa is losing so much money. But instead of us focusing on that, we're being made to focus on this idea of domestic corruption, how bad it is, how we're not reaching development as a result. I can categorically tell you, even if today in Kenya we had zero corruption, rather. Freudian slip there.
Zero democracy, okay.
My benevolent dictatorship sentiments.
Zero democracy may equate to zero corruption.
If we had zero corruption, we still would not be able to develop as fast as we would develop if we could curb the illicit financial flows coming out of Kenya. And by that, I mean multinationals coming into Kenya, doing business with Kenya, making money out of Kenyans and with Kenyans, but not paying the taxes that are needed. Because, of course, this is how government makes money, through taxes. Yes, we're leaking money and we're seeping money, but we're hemorrhaging billions. And this is all of Africa through the illicit financial flows. So sometimes I think the West has an agenda to drive this discourse and make it the dominant discourse, this domestic corruption discourse, so that we can overlook and ignore what is actually going on. And it does this through instruments like Transparency International, where they keep coming and giving us this corruption. Absolutely. And it's a perception index.
Well, I think
we improve 5 positions, then
they've mastered the art of doing
7.
that. They mastered the art of doing that, because even the creation of Hollywood itself was diversionary in how they wanted to take away the attention of people from what was actually happening with government. And that's how Hollywood, for example, was created. It took people's attention away from what was happening in government and from the fact that there were very few people then controlling what happened in the American government, and had people looking at all the glitter and the stars and taking their attention with that. And you can see that they would translate this in other global perspectives, and they did it, and they've actually been able to do it very well. Now, if we come back to what the U.S. ambassador to Kenya said, it was interesting because he said in the backlash that came from Kenyans, and this is very important, he said, you're watching too much news. This actually is not the case, because he said, look, the Big Four agenda should not be, Kenyatta's Big Four agenda should not be another opportunity for thievery to happen in Kenya. Stop corruption, say no to the thievery. And Kenyans basically said back to him, but what about what is happening in your country? And his response was that you're watching too much news. But this is the truth. Whether you're watching too much news, you're still getting the information, and this is actually what is happening. And finally, the US is not in a position whereby you can point the finger and say stop this or the other, because we see that it's happening openly in your backyard. And because of the way the world has evolved in terms of the digitalization of information, we can get this information very fast, and we know what is happening. So we can actually finally be in a place, this is what it has allowed for us to be in a place to question that authority that you now prefer upon us with the morality finger that you choose to point.
Going by that argument as well, so the pot is black and the kettle is black. Does it mean that the pot has no moral authority to actually call the kettle black?
Yes.
Because you're black too?
Why?
Wash your body first.
Why not?
Why must you wash your body first?
Because
I'm just calling you for what you are. I mean, I see you. You're black.
Yes, I see you that are black and I'm black, but you continually push this on. We're saying you yourself are. So where's your stand? It's shaky at best. Where's your stand to be able to tell me that I can?
So you're suggesting that they are not allowed to be hypocritical?
No. I dare suggest.
No, they have every right. You know, when you push the limits of rights, you actually have a right to do almost anything. That is if you push it to the nth, as I said. But
so then Kenya has a right to then be corrupt?
Of course we do. You also have a right to get arrested because there are laws within which you can practice your corruption.
Right.
You also have a right to have a situation where you are sacked. All these things are rights because one works with the other. I think this isn't a battle of who is most corrupt and who is most inept, who is most qualified to judge the other.
It's who's most dependent, no, on the other.
Yes.
So Kel Makata actually has that over us.
He doesn't have to say it. If
we
are
take
giving,
aid
if we are
from
giving
America.
you money,
Because
then you
You do as we say.
Yes.
There's actually a direct, it's proportionally direct, the dependency and power. The fact that we get money from them and the power they then lord over us.
So here also we go. So because I have donated the ABCD to you, then I also have a right to actually say, hey, but I'm giving you so much money and you're misusing it.
I have big brother status.
I'm giving you money and misusing it.
Yes.
Not only big brother status, but from the fact that I'm actually contributing to what you're doing.
So your job is not to tell me where I have failed, but your job is to do what I say by virtue of the fact that I can lord my donation over you because of that I have given to you.
Actually,
well, the conversation here is not about where
I don't think it's
first.
lording it. When these monies are given, they are given with conditions. You understand each other.
Yep.
This is what you'll do with the money. Now, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, surely they have every right to question you.
They will.
Also, it's a trade partner. The United States of America, it's overtaken the Netherlands and it's become the second largest market for Kenya's exports. So we have to be very careful. If we're selling our products to them, they could easily put on tariffs and stop all this happening. So if they're an export partner, if we're exporting our products to them, then we listen to what they say.
It's in-laws, basically where you are, right?
But I think
it's a relative.
We're married in this
It's a
case.
relative. Well, it's a partner as well.
Which kind of in-law do you want to look at?
29 minutes to 10 o'clock. Good morning. We'd love for you to participate in this conversation 0719 600. We'll also be looking at what you're saying on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter via hashtag Situation Room. Good morning.
Calling all Spice FM listeners. Feeling a little light in the pocket? This is your chance to win as much as 5,000 shillings every day on the Spice Drive with me, Monique, by simply participating in our brand new Spice FM Mystery Voice Challenge. If you think you can recognize this mystery voice,
Some of these people never got through wedding.
then call into the Spice Drive every weekday or participate via social media to claim your prize. Spice FM. Sugar, spice, and everything nice.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles. Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Leonie Lesiku, jam from all stops, but moving slowly on the Thika Superhighway. It is not happening, unfortunately. Around about 9:35, there is traffic, and that is the same with Wayaki Way. So those are the culprits this morning. It's Wayaki Way as well as the Thika Superhighway. Everybody else is behaving this morning. Unless you see something that is out of the ordinary, do let us know. We have information of some road closure. I think that is from tomorrow. Kingara Road and Naivasha Road will be closed from 10th to 17th October. So it closes tomorrow the 10th and opens on the 17th. Naivasha Road closes on the 17th and will open on the 24th. And this is because of relocation. Okay, I don't know. But the roads are being worked on. I'm not going to give you the details because I would be lying. The roads will not be open for those days. So please use alternative routes where you can. 0719-012-600. In the half hour that we have left, if you see anything out of the ordinary, do let us know.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and Eric Latif in the Situation Room with you this morning. Kenya's biggest conversation, 0719-012-600. Please join in. So Kyle Makata, the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, dared say something about Kenya and corruption.
Basically called and said, generally, and said that, the thievery would hamper the efforts of the Big Four agenda. The Big Four agenda is something that Kenyans would want to aspire to, and basically asked for calls to stop the thievery that is going on and look at this as a way to curb corruption. Is one of the ways in which corruption can be curbed in this country and allow the Big Four agenda to carry through. And of course, some people went crazy because they said, look, we understand what you're saying, but who are you basically to tell us that we should, when you have the proverbial log in your eye, you're trying to remove the speck in ours. And of course, pointing back to President Trump and what is going on with him with proceedings of impeachment, in the works right now. So corruption, however you used to look at it, corruption is corruption is corruption. And he also is basically at the door of that which opens into a free-falling cliff. So we asking ourselves the question and actually looking at saying, just because they do give us aid, just because they give aid to Kenya over and over and over again, or because they're the number one trading partner with Kenya, does this kind of conditionality then allow you not to question as a country, not to question where the moral finger pointing is coming from, and say, well, that's fantastic, but what about what's happening in your backyard? Perhaps you need to deal with what is going on there before you then now move on over to us.
The two are not necessarily related. If you have a toing and froing of blame, it doesn't detract from the facts.
There's corruption in Kenya.
Yes. Just like the corruption in America.
There's corruption in the US, yes.
It doesn't detract from the fact that we do have corruption in Kenya. It also doesn't detract from the fact that he could be speaking about the money which they give us, which we take the way that we take monies that we have. And he has every right to speak about the money that they give, because those monies are given with very definite and clear conditions.
And especially if he's been approached to finance some of the projects in the Big Four agenda.
Yes. So he has absolutely every right to speak.
He does, but maybe we need to repackage his communication style, because the brand that and reputation that America had, they can't make these assertions. So if he's genuinely trying to stop us or to inform us on corruption, maybe he needs to speak to us in a different tone.
It needs to change tone.
Yeah, if
it's
he's-
about time. I think the Western ambassadors actually all changed tone. Remember those days when, not even long ago, when we had what was his name, Clay. And speaking about you're vomiting on our shoes and all those kind of things. I mean, the language was just too tough. And
No,
positioning yourself
that
on
language was appropriate and it was deliberate. How do you think we remember what he said now? Had he said, please use the money we give you carefully, would anybody have remembered it? No. He was graphic about it.
Well, in this case, I think it comes out as a bit patronizing and condescending.
It
The way
is
in which it's being, the way in which it's being delivered.
No,
Yeah.
it
And
is
that's the
patronizing
problem,
and
yeah.
it is condescending. If you don't want it, then don't take their money.
And we're doing just that, but they're getting upset. We're beginning to look east to China, and
Yeah.
China has no intervention in our domestic policy or what
They
have you,
only
but-
intervene in taking your ports.
Which they haven't,
Well,
which
if
is
you
another
look at,
propaganda being spread by the West.
Absolutely. If you look at what China has done
Are
for
you
us
saying
in
they
the
didn't take
last
that
10
port?
years and compared to
Which
what
port?
the West has done for us, Colombia, Sri Lanka.
Which port in Kenya? Which port in Kenya
no,
have
no.
they taken?
They don't just take it.
Which port in Kenya have they
No,
taken?
they haven't taken, but they're
Bas,
heading there.
This is it. This is the propaganda that's being spread by the West.
No, they did take a
Fear-mongering.
port. There is Colombia. Colombia was collateral for a loan
Yes,
that
they
China
took-
had been
they
given.
took-
So was Zambia. So was Zambia.
They took a
But-
port, yes, and also the West has also imposed sanctions on very many other
Absolutely.
countries. That is one on the
Did
other.
they take anybody's port?
Absolutely. They've taken livelihoods and lives. But that's a
Worse.
debate for another day. What
Like-
I'm saying is that they could actually help us, or we could work in partnership without them interfering with our domestic affairs. And an example of this is seen in China. When was the last time you heard, I don't even know who the Chinese ambassador to us is. And China, we probably have more relations in terms of financial flows in and out of the country or debts and so on from China than we do from any other country. Yet we don't know what the ambassador is called. So we don't need the West making such statements and berating Kenyans.
Jerry, you know, if you look at what the Chinese, he's going to call it propaganda, and he may. But he is Eric here.
Oh, right, got it.
I agree with Eric in
Yes.
this instance. The West has been very active in
But-
ensuring
but
China,
they
Sino-China
would be.
relations are painted in a
Look,
very
no, no, no.
Fear-mongering.
Let's not
absolutely
discuss
that China is
no.
optimistic and taking advantage. What has the West been doing
What
all
is the
these
China
years?
doing? The China is actually
Under
going and
China,
taking all
we
your
have
resources.
developed-
Why is it that every time I begin a discussion, you pick it up and take it in a direction I do not want it to go to?
I'm sorry.
Take it to the
All right,
other
redirect.
You drive your discussion.
I have no interest.
I've given you back the steering wheel.
Redirect.
No, it's not a question of giving me back the steering wheel. I'd just like you to acknowledge that my contribution to your discussion is this, but you carry it on as though that's what I wanted to say. No, that's not what I wanted to say.
Okay,
What do you
usually
want to
I'm
say?
pretty spot on what you want to say.
You've been spot
so-
on twice.
There's even a number.
Yes, I count. I can count beyond. I can count beyond one.
All
I'm
right,
able to
go
count.
on, go on. What's your point?
The point is this: when you take money from any nation, you know who they are, and you know how it is they conduct their business. Why are we crying wolf? The Americans have been lording over us for as long as we can remember. It's not as though they started yesterday. This preachy attitude towards their money has always been there, but we keep taking their money. The Chinese give their money, but their money also has issues. There is no one who gives you money.
There's no free lunch.
Zero. The discussion, if I may now borrow from how Njeri would have crafted, would have said, now, the discussion we ought to be having is which particular government we should do business with and which particular kind of loans would be useful to us as Kenya. That's the discussion we should be having.
Oh, well, just because something has always been done, just because they've always sort of belittled us and been somewhat denigrating in terms of how
If
they
we
speak
feel
to us.
belittled, it doesn't mean they're trying to belittle us.
No, I'm not saying. The way they speak to us is derogatory. But derogatory.
The way they speak to us,
But
the way they speak to
it's
each other.
condescending. What I'm saying is just because it's always happened, you're saying, well, we should be used to it.
I am
We're
trying-
now making a stand
And
against
I'm
it
trying
because
to
we're
say-
saying,
that
hold
finally,
on, well, you
here
guys
we are
don't have a
with
leg
more
to stand.
Right.
Folks.
And
stand
here we
on.
are saying with more information that we
is
didn't
how
have
they
before.
speak to even their own citizenry.
Yes,
it
and
doesn't
we are
make
saying
it
that
arrogant.
it doesn't need to be that way.
you're making it a black-white issue here because they're white and they speak to us, so it's arrogant. No.
Obama was black and we didn't like the way he spoke to us. No,
How come we didn't make so much noise?
We did. Well, maybe they
When?
were fairer to us. You know,
When?
Trump is a bit sort of outspoken and obnoxious, so it's reflected
Folks,
in maybe some of
this
the
money
people he
that we're
sends to
asking
different
for
countries.
is their money, okay? Just so that we understand each other. They give it to you on certain conditions, okay? If they feel you don't meet the conditions and they complain about it, that's what they're doing. You're now turning it into the language they're using is not respectful.
Yeah.
Well,
Just
no,
because
City's
my-
got a point. We
just
haven't been
because my-
respectful
just
in
because
misusing
my
their
big
money.
brother-
Yeah.
Just because my big brother keeps giving me money doesn't mean that he can come and tell me every time.
That's a Kenyan mindset. That's a Kenyan mindset.
This is it, and I'm a Kenyan.
No,
That's
but
why
Eric,
I'm
do you think
speaking
they
from
give
this
us
point.
money because they genuinely want to help us? They've got their own agendas. They've got
There's
their own things.
nothing that the United States look here.
There's nothing
nothing
like
that
free lunch.
Self-serving. It's a
there's
self-serving
nothing
interest.
that the United States will ever do that they don't have interest in beyond that action.
But that is how it's done.
That's how they
That's
operate.
the nature of life.
Yes.
So
why are we crying wolf? Look, do we have to take money
We're
from
crying
them? The
foul,
answer is
not
no.
wolf.
No. Where we're crying wolf. No.
Crying wolf is when you keep. Anyway, we're crying foul.
And you assume I do not know what crying wolf means.
Anyway, that's not the discussion.
Where we are crying wolf, go on.
Is this alarmist discussion, when we aren't meeting our obligations, we change the conversation and now we make it one of disrespect. This has nothing to do with disrespect. We don't have the money, we borrowed it, we can't pay for it, or we're misusing it, we are being called out.
No,
saying
no,
that-
no.
No,
He's
no,
not
no,
calling
no, no.
us.
We don't like
You
the
you
truth.
made a
I'm
big
fine.
assumption
No.
that he was talking about
No.
money that we've been lent
No,
and we're
no.
misusing.
He was talking specifically about project initiatives in this country that he's saying don't allow it to be scuttled by corruption. That's what he's saying.
Oh.
Don't allow these projects to be
Which
scuttled
projects?
by
How
American
how would
the
he
Big
know
Four.
about projects?
He was
if they're
talking
never-
about the
how
Big
would
Four.
he know?
Specifically the
So
Big
he's not
Four
talking about
agenda.
American money here.
He's talking about the Big
about
Four
us as
agenda,
Kenyans.
and he was very clear in his message that he was talking about the Big Four agenda. Do not allow it to be scuttled by corruption and stop the thievery. Is what he was saying, and he was very clear. What I'm saying
So
is
is
that
he funding?
in
Is
the
he funding this? And this is what they're trying to do now, overthrow the government.
oh, here, voila.
No, I think maybe they're they're priming
Do
us
you really think
for
the
the failure of the
ambassador
Big
of
Four.
America would have a leg to stand on if he didn't know that they give money and we have misused it? Do you think they would?
He knows. Given, yes. There are some things that we have said. We have agreed. We are not going to argue with things that are known as facts. Fact is, yes, Western countries give money to us as loans, as grants.
But you know,
all right?
further on the-
Another fact is that yes, in
You see,
some cases,
even Ndu is catching on. This sitting next to Njeri.
in some
But
instances,
please,
yes,
Njeri,
we
interrupt.
misuse.
Ndu, interrupt him, please.
We misuse before she does that. We misuse some of this money. Yes, that is a fact. Also, it's a fact that they also speak to us in bad language.
But you know what? He went on further, and when he was asked about the corruption that happens in their backyard, do you know what he said? He said, "You're watching too much news. That doesn't happen. In which world do you
tell him also
operate
he's
in?
watching too much local news.
In what world do you operate in? Basically negating that there's actually corruption in his backyard, and that is what was being brought to the fore.
I've got
That,
the phone
you know
lines
what? This is
open.
great that you're pointing this out to us, but it's happening with you as well. And he went on to almost deny that.
0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. What conversation should we be having?
I think they're trying to distract our attention from the illicit financial flows and making the dominant discourse the domestic corruption that we're seeing. And I think that's why the international community keeps hammering on, hammer and tongs about this domestic corruption. I'm not saying it's not a problem. It's something we can actually resolve ourselves. But if we're going to have cross-border or international conversations,
Jerry, this is
they
something we
should be
cannot resolve ourselves.
if we're going to have international conversations or conversations with our international partners, it should not be about our domestic corruption. It should be about the illicit financial
Then
flows.
stop taking money from them.
No, we can take money from them. There's other things they get from us. They have their reason for giving us money, but you don't come here and be our moral police. You don't have to make
Stop
this statement.
taking money
There's
from
other
them.
mechanisms.
There's other
mechanisms through which they
Like
can
which
ensure we
ones?
don't
Like
misappropriate
which
their
ones?
funds.
Like which ones?
For instance, they can tighten the noose and stop lending us
How?
money, which is what China did. When China felt that we weren't doing the right thing according to them, they refused to give us more loans, right? Which is what the West can do.
Is that the reason why China refused to give us money?
Well, we won't go into the details, but when
No.
somebody refuses to give you more, to add more to your
What
load,
was the
there's
money
something
for?
not right. To
Look,
extend the
the other
SGR.
day, it was reported that the IMF people, who normally come to help us restructure
The IMF
our debt
people.
repayment,
They're the US.
IMF people, yes, went back.
Mm.
And why did they go back? The reason which was given in the papers was that
They didn't want to do again.
no. You read a different paper. The paper I read stated that because the CS and his permanent secretary were no longer in office, the discussions shouldn't continue. And this was reported by a high-ranking officer within that particular ministry. Now,
Let's look at Israel. Sorry. You asked me about what else they should do, what mechanisms they have. I'm sorry, I hadn't finished and you came in.
you had
Israel,
finished.
no, I hadn't.
What I've said has just given you an idea to latch onto. So latch onto it by all means. In fact,
No, Israel, when they felt that their money was not going in the right direction, what happened?
The
The
upper
ambassador
left.
resigned. They
But-
left.
but did they pull
didn't
out the
stand
they didn't
there
pull out
and
of the
give us
project?
these moral statements of how useless we are, how bure we are, and continue doing that.
Yes.
You know, they just left. They said,
Because this
you know, how
ambassador
you
could have done that. He could have
Hands
called a press
folded.
conference
Yeah,
and said,
hands
you know
folded.
what,
Look,
this thing,
Yeah.
you
We're not
Kenyans,
doing
your
again, as
corruption,
we would say.
oh, the
Yeah.
corruption is so much. In fact, we've come in to help you and you're vomiting on our shoes.
No,
He didn't
they
do
left.
that.
So there's mechanisms in place to ensure that, or to push us to do things in the right way. We don't have to be
You know-
constantly lectured like little children.
you know this argument you're putting forward is like the argument of someone who marries a wife who is short, and then keeps blaming her and saying, I'm sorry I really married you, really short. Was she the only woman who was
What's wrong
available
with
for
short
marriage?
women, though?
No, I'm giving you an example.
No,
You could
that's
have
not a
married a
good
tall
example.
one. You could have married a fat one.
Nothing wrong.
You
What's
could
wrong
have
with fat
married a
women?
rail thin one. you had all these options. So
Yeah, but don't
stop
insult
telling
her.
us about your
Yeah,
short
but stop
wife.
insulting her
That's
now.
just
Why?
her.
Eh, leave
She's
her
fine
alone.
the way she is.
Eh,
But
so why
don't
do you keep
insult her.
insulting her? You take her as you are. You married her knowing her 1, 2, 3. You still decided to get into this relationship with her. Must you be reminding her every day that she's short? Leave her alone, I beg.
What is wrong with being short?
I beg.
I believe the point I'm making has been understood.
Yes, I hope you have understood it. Because basically what you're saying is do not. Just
I'm simply
because
saying,
Do not marry
I'm
a short
saying-
wife.
No, I am saying we have options. Forget talking about what the Americans should do. They are telling us what to do. We don't follow the example and prescribe. We have options of other things we can do. We don't have to. That's why I keep repeating. Why must you take money from them? You don't have to.
Look,
But the reason why we continuously do so is because the people we have in power right now seem completely unable, absolutely unable to manage even what we have within our own economy. They don't seem to be capable of it.
Is it America that will help us? Is
That's
it the
why I'm
US that's
saying-
going to help Kenya?
See,
You
for
haven't
example?
heard me. I have said move away from them.
Ah,
Move.
okay.
That's what I've said.
And
move
go
away.
where? And go where?
Internalize it. Start by seeing how best we can ensure
We
we
need
don't have to borrow.
international trade. We need international. So it's not just.
I'm not saying,
it's
no,
not just-
Eric, you're simplifying this thing. I'm not saying you move away from trade. I'm saying you
I'm
move away
actually-
from this amount of borrowing.
I'm actually
which makes you a
broadening
slave
it.
to this sort of comments that we're now debating.
So
I'm
then when these-
broadening it.
oh.
Those bilateral ties that also help us to make America the second largest export market for us is because of our bilateral ties. It's because of things like AGOA, And the reason why we have an ambassador who's so strong is because he knows. It's because he knows we've entered into ties where we're actually facilitating that American people can access goods from Kenya and Kenyan people can actually export to the USA. We have got those ties.
Tariff-free, might I add.
Tariff-free. And because they know that they've given them to us tariff-free so that we can develop our markets, then they also have something. Quid pro quo comes in.
Also, we must understand that Trump's style is not necessarily that. It's not particularly democratic or politically correct. That's generally his style in terms of even his utterances to his own people and what he says and what he gets away with.
He's going against his own the grain in America.
He's representing a big chunk of people in America. I think
The majority.
he's saying what people have always wanted to say, but this political correctness had sort of suppressed them, so to speak. But so I think when we have statements like these coming out of the American embassy, it's also reflective of the leadership in the US. Of course, it's the leadership that would appoint their representatives in different countries. So maybe we can blame it on Trump's being in terms of his demeanor, the way he does things. This is reflective of that. Now we're being told what to do. He's not as diplomatic as we have had or as other presidents have been. We have to keep that in mind. He's known as frank, honest, and so on. Like he says it as it is, so to speak. So maybe that's what this particular ambassador is doing.
But we've had worse ambassadors like Kyle McCarter.
Jerry, the former president of this country, Daniel Arap Moi, spoke about this very thing we are discussing, and spoke about it very emotively when he was talking about how it is we think that these people have our interests at heart and yet they don't. I remember not only did the president speak, he even sang a song. And he was telling, look, Africans were the ones who understand our problems. If you really want to do something, think about how you can solve your own problems. He said, nobody knows the trouble I see, nobody knows my sorrow. He sang it on national TV and radio. I heard it. That man said his thing simply, but he was right on so many things. So many things. This discussion is taking place because of this appetite we seem to have for continuously borrowing. You don't have to borrow if you have trade, not necessarily. You just have to increase trade. When we have a situation where you can't even collect revenue, it's in the country. It's not that it's taken flight. It's in the country, and the government itself confesses they can't actually collect all of it. That problem is not whether someone is looking down on us or telling us this or speaking to us rudely. We are deflecting. The problem is us and our own inabilities.
Yeah, but at the same time, let nobody insult us.
We were not insulted. We felt insulted, but it doesn't mean we were insulted.
0719-012-600. You would love for you to call in and contribute to this conversation. Also, you can comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, where we are live streaming as well. But not the kind of comments that I've seen Charles Akeri actually posting. He's advocating. He's selling the Illuminati Society. If you'd like to join the Illuminati Society.
He's giving a platform.
Well, that's a man who clearly understands his freedoms and he's exercising them.
Well, we'd like a comment on what we are discussing, or if you'd like to raise a new conversation, yes. But he's actually going into business. If you want to join the Illuminati Society, the organization is willing to extend its wealth and fame to humanity. You'll be rewarded $500,000.
Do they give loans to government?
Yes, $500,000.
Well, there's somebody who won't talk to you in a patronizing or condescending manner once you got into a relationship with them, as it were. Well, so I mean, I think that at the same time, I also do. We are living in spaces where information that previously would not have been so, glaring or evident in terms of information spreading. Has changed. We were not in the place before where we would actually know that corruption actually was resident in the backyard of the US. And now we can know that, we can see that, and it's clear. Now maybe helps us make more informed decisions that maybe if we want to get to a place whereby nobody can speak to us in the way that we want, yes, perhaps we do need to look internally and make sure that we sort out our issues as emerging or developing economies. However, at the same time, it is good to do this from an informed point of view. And it's clear that the information coming out is not something that they can manage, because you speak on a global platform like the President of the United States himself. We're going to get to know what is going on. And so you can make your decisions informed now, and you don't necessarily have to just take whatever is, thrown down your throat, as it was the case many years ago.
This is actually giving Africans the opportunity to take over the reins of our own conversations.
We can own our success. Absolutely.
Starting with this and starting to say, because nobody else can come and tell us, you've got internal corruption. So we start amplifying our successes. We start amplifying what's working for us, our positives. Because we keep talking about corruption, failed governance,
failed governance. We do have it.
Failed governance.
And we do have that as well. It may sound like we are flogging a dead horse, but we are not. If you forget to mention that this is wrong, people forget that it is wrong and start thinking it is right. It has to be mentioned. Like calling out the church on the hypocrisy, it's important.
It must be done.
We'll be talking more about this tomorrow. But it must be done, and not once, and not twice. When people react, it means...
You've struck a chord.
Yes, you have. You have. If they ignore you, then clearly you need to change your tact completely, because it isn't resonating at any level anywhere.
Our position on the UN Security Council, should we get it?
How is it going to help us?
make noise at that platform as well.
Oh, but in terms of who's going to
Start-
listen and in
start-
terms of what's going to be done,
Yeah,
it's-
start lecturing the West.
It's a puppet position
In a
at
room.
best. It's a puppet position at best, unfortunately, and it's a place whereby you have a position, but you don't have veto power. For example, you don't. With that position that's maybe offered to Kenya, it's a position on the council, but you don't have veto power in terms of decisions that will be made on a global scale. Unfortunately,
Very few countries have veto
Yeah,
power.
yeah.
It's like a guest membership.
Exactly.
Yes.
Play some tennis, but you're not gonna be able to tell us how we're
You
going
can
to
come
run
into
the club.
clubhouse, yes.
Yeah.
You can be manager of the clubhouse, but come and play tennis. It's a good thing.
Really?
Or in this case, come and mow the lawn.
in this case, as it were.
So you are at least within the compound of the club.
So you got 1.5 minutes to the end of the show. I'd like to go around with closing remarks and how we view the week coming ahead.
Oh, the week coming ahead. I had something to say about this statement as a closing remark, the
Yes.
statement that's come out of the American ambassador. And I think, personally, it's yet another opportunity to reinforce this discourse of domestic corruption that we've had or we've been given as Africa and we keep talking about. And it distracts us from what we really need to be focusing on, which is the illicit financial flows that are coming out of Africa. We're hemorrhaging billions that could lead to proper sustainable development. Instead, we focus on the domestic corruption, which is fine internally and as a country, but when it comes to any cross-border conversations with regards to our economy, it should be based on the fact that we have multinationals that are evading tax that could actually develop Africa. I think that's where we stand.
I think we need to do everything that we do from a background of information. It's necessary for us to know really, literally what is happening around us, and that helps us then to be able to make decisions that could affect us, definitely on a local level and also on a global scale. It's important that we know or be in the know.
Please have a wonderful week.
Thanks, CT.
The Situation Room comes to an end now. 6 to 10 a.m. Join us again tomorrow on every other day of the week. Every day of the week. Between now and 3 p.m. is Spice Soul, uninterrupted music. 3 to 7 p.m. The Spice Drive with Monique. 7 to 10 p.m. The Adults in the Room. See you again tomorrow. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. It's now 10 o'clock.